regularly scheduled open session for the El Segundo City Council. And the invocation tonight will be by Reverend Dina Ferguson, St. Michael's Episcopal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Very excited to have Troop 267 represented, so I'll please stand.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we come before you this evening and we ask your guidance, wisdom, support, and presence at this meeting of the El Segundo City Council. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion and to discern what is truly important. Open our ears and our hearts to hear our fellow council members and all those who come to address this council. Help us to speak clearly and honestly as we offer our own thoughts and wisdom on each topic. Guide us in our deliberations and give us the courage to make the right decisions. Fill us with your grace, Lord God. Bless us and all the people we serve, and continue to remind us that in all we do here this evening is in service to others. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Group attention. May the audience please. Guard. Advance. Guard, post the colors. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. All those in uniform, please salute. All others, place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. Color guard salute. 2. Color guard dismissed. Audience may be seated.
Wow, that was really well done, Troop 267. Eric, Carey, I see Tim back there. Thank you for your leadership. Incredible job. Merrick Boyles, you look sharp. Thank you for being here. It hopefully doesn't take this to get you at a council meeting, young man. All right, we've got a couple presentations tonight, and we're going to start with Lieutenant Raymond Garcia of the El Segundo Police Department regarding Candy Cane Lane Community Meeting. Lieutenant Garcia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm here for the Chief of Police who could not be here today to invite members of the public on May 31st at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers to have a meeting about Candy Cane Lane, what we did in 2017, and in preparation for our 2018 deployment. We need feedback from people to hear what they have to say, good and bad, and to help us develop strategies for the upcoming event. And as we all know, with the advent of social media, this has really become a big event in our city. So the more information we have, the better informed we can be and the better plans that we can make.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And can you give us the date again of that meeting?
I'm sorry, it is May 31st at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I know you did a great job of embracing the community and working with different stakeholders, Mr. Nickel and others, for last year, and big changes were made. So thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Any questions before Lieutenant Garcia? No? Okay, thank you. Did you have something, Scott?
Where else is this information being posted?
We'll put it on social media. We'll put it out through our resources here at the police department. Do all city personnel will also reach out to Chamber of Commerce.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you again. All right, we have a proclamation, National Public Works Week, May 20th through May 26th. And Mr. Berkman, Ken, please.
You want to read the proclamation?
I don't have it, I don't believe.
Should be there.
If I do, it's buried.
It's there.
Well, why don't you
All right.
tell us what National Public Works Week is
We'll
about
start,
and how important public works is.
Sure.
Here you go.
Honorable Mayor, council members, while we wait, I would like to start off with a video from the American Public Works Association to introduce Public Works Week and what we're all about. Thank you.
I do have it.
Okay.
Scott just mysteriously found it. No, I'm just kidding. It was here all along.
All right. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to read it. Ken, are you okay with that? Okay. Whereas public works services are central to the health, safety, and general well-being of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry, tough word, is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and facilities such as streets and highways, water utilities, sewers, storm drains, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these systems and facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, and maintenance, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of dedicated public works professionals. And whereas the efficiency of said professionals who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now therefore, the mayor and members of the city council do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week in the city of El Segundo, and call upon the citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions that public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. And it's signed by the city council. So Ken, would you take a couple moments and just tell the audience just how large our organization is? We'll present this in a second. Thank you, Carol. But just give us a little background on public works. You have a very impressive department there, if you would. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor, council members. It's a privilege to serve El Segundo and our approximate 50 folks in public works that take care of everything that we come to wake up and go to sleep with. I wanted to tell a little story through APWA here first, and while I'm here, I wanted to introduce folks in the back. A few public works folks are here. Anthony Esparza, our water supervisor, is here. Michael Ward from our water department, and Floriza Rivera from our engineering department, as well as Orlando Rodriguez from our engineering department. All welcome guests, and I appreciate their service and their being here right now.
We are the ones that turn dreams into reality. Our focus on leadership, professional development, and our ability to actually deliver and maintain real community improvements makes us both the dreamers and the doers.
Advancing quality of life for all. That's our big story.
To keep our communities safe and strong and resilient.
There's something powerful about giving back with consistency, with passion, with balance.
Working together, we build lasting wealth and prosperity within our communities.
There's imagination behind making our communities thrive. But it doesn't magically appear. From our clean water, to complex infrastructure, to creating the public spaces where our communities gather every day. Our first responders, heroes, first on the scene, last to leave. It's with determination, commitment, and passion where the men and women of public works create a better quality of life for all, the dreamers and doers. Together, the strength of our communities, united by association, over 30,000 strong, advancing the quality of life for every moment of every day. Public Works, imagining tomorrow, today.
So that I really personally appreciate that focus on quality of life this year. You know, all of us really chose this profession to help society and improve all of our quality of life. And I like to say we're doing a good job if you don't know we're there. But we're always there. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, and really every moment in between, Public Works is always at work. We take care of water and our sewer systems, storm drains, our building systems, our vehicles, review development plans, and manage environmental programs, deliver multi-million-dollar capital improvement programs for our city. And as we like to say, take great pride in partnering with our police and fire as first responders in case of disasters or catastrophes. But most importantly, especially for the folks behind me and on the Public Works team, I'm truly proud to be part of their team, the Public Works team in El Segundo. They're an extremely hardworking group, and they go out of their way to deliver the best services they can to our residents and our businesses, and make sure we enjoy the highest quality of life that we can. So I thank you, Council, for this proclamation, and assure you that I speak for all of us in Public Works when we're always here at your service. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ken. Would you like to bring your staff up, Ken, to receive the proclamation? Do a photo. Let's get the council up there, please.
Very good. Miles.
Mayor, I'd say that we're very proud of these folks. There's been more public construction going on in this city in the last 2 years than probably in the prior 10. And these are the folks that come out on the weekend or at night when there's a sewage backup or a water main break or something, an accident where one of our light poles has been hit. We call these folks up and they come out and take care of whatever we need.
Yeah, I was going to ask Ken for some stats, because I remember when I interviewed through the department, I don't want to put you on the spot, Ken, but I think it's pretty impressive when you hear how much activity actually happens in Public Works. I'm sure you have some of those off the top of your head, just how much stuff actually gets done in the city. Some ballpark numbers, maybe?
Sure, and I appreciate the question. You know, it's 60 miles of sewers and roads and just hundreds of storm drain catch basins that we see in the street. We have approximately annual $10 to $13 million capital program we're working on, and taking care of the campus fields, turf replacement, for example, all the work we did at the fire station, outside and inside, the police station, the roofs. But it's great, the stuff that we don't see, the things that we as a team all go out of our way to help each other do our jobs, from, you know, this air conditioning right here to all the vehicles. And we love working across departments, you know, recreation and parks and police and fire, and planning all the land development that we see going on out here, engineering and planning review with building and safety and others, not to mention, of course, our most critical resource, water, which we deliver. And, you know, I'm just proud of the team. They do a ton of work every day.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Any questions from the council while Ken's here? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Nickel.
Here.
Councilmember Pimentel.
Here.
Councilmember Brand.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Perstuck. Here. And Mayor Boyles.
Here. Okay, this is a time in the agenda that we provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the City Council on items of interest to the public that are within jurisdiction of our City Council. Additionally, if scheduled, the public can comment on any public hearing item on the agenda. I don't think we have any public hearing items tonight. And there's a 5-minute limit. Do we have any folks that would like to make public comment? Yes, please address the microphone. If you could state your name and your address, that'd be great, please.
Oh, my address? My name is Aiden Johnson, 508 Lameda Street, and I would like to thank City Council for allowing us to do the flag ceremony on this great evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you again very much, Troop 267, for being here. I know we have at least one Eagle Scout in the audience, and we love everything that you're doing in terms of developing the next generation of leaders. It's a great program. Thank you all. Okay, that closes public comments. All right, so we've got consideration and motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, okay. No special orders of business. No unfinished business. No reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any polls from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to pull number 10 and 12.
Okay, and I'll be pulling items 7, 8, and 9. Any other polls? Okay, do I have a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11?
Wait.
No?
Mayor, just to be clear, 10 and 11, you don't need.
Thank you. That's right. Okay.
right.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, Carol,
That
those
was
are
me.
new business. All good. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay. Item 7, consideration and possible action to accept as complete the Lifeguard wastewater Forcemain bathroom project number PW 1514, fiscal impact $814,000. I don't have any real questions here, Ken, other than to highlight a couple things here. I'd like to hear, I know that bathroom availability has been an issue, and that we've been using Rex and Park staff and other city staff to tend to the bathrooms, and they've been open on a limited access basis. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that, and also take the opportunity to thank, when I read the staff report, thank Chevron. Looks like they waived $40,000 fee, and just wanted to express gratitude to Chevron. If anyone is here from Chevron, thank you for that. But can you talk about the bathrooms? What's going to be different with that finally being plumbed into the sewer there?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lifeguard station at the end of the Grand there is now has a force main, which is basically the pipe that is ready to receive flow once we build the actual pump station. So right now we're on a monthly basis having the service done for the septic tank, the holding tank. So that's about $10,000 a year, and ultimately the goal, it's in design. We expect to bring that back to council to approve the design and go out for construction bids in the fall, in the off beach season. And once that is complete, the understanding, I believe, is that we're looking for the county to completely take over the facility for maintenance. So with this system in place, and it's all plumbed for sewer, and that's supposed to occur.
Okay, thanks. Greg, did you have a thought on that?
Well, I think your question is there the opportunity to increase the hours or days that the restroom is open? Certainly, once the pump is installed, we'll no longer be paying for the pump out service, and we could repurpose those dollars for additional hours or days of the year. Right now, it's open from Memorial to Labor Day. If you wanted to be open spring and fall or year round, that's a conversation we could have, and needs to be tied to a cost. There's going to be an added cost to open it up for those hours, and an evaluation of how often it's used. Most of the beach restrooms along our Southern California beaches are open year round. So I think with the bike path, with the level of activity down there, there's definitely the demand. The question is, do we want to pay for it, and how much is that going to cost? So we can bring that back as part of the budget with a better estimate of when that pump is going to be installed.
Great.
Right.
And
Thank you.
that cost would be 100% our burden to do that?
Currently, yes.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve number 7, item 7?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris, you were an aye, right? Okay, 5-0. All right, 8, I pulled this one as well. Consideration and possible action to award a standard public works contract to Palp Incorporated DBA Excel Paving Company in a form approved by the city attorney for construction of the Main Street Bollards, project number PW 1808, fiscal impact $152,000. Just a question, I didn't quite understand the $24,000 shortage that was referenced in the staff report, but when I look at the summary here, the recommendations, it talks about an additional $13,800, so just getting a little clarity there. And then I just thought we might want to talk about, are there other areas of the city that we are looking at that where we might be vulnerable? I think Lieutenant Garcia, are you addressing this one, or Ken? Not sure. Thank you.
Did a quick look at our past year and where we had hard closures, and we've had several city events that occur throughout the year, and I counted 10. Besides it, that includes our farmers market, where we have hard closures throughout the city, and these include our hometown fair, public safety day, 4th of July, our fireworks show, PTA fun run, car show. So there's a number of them. We also have 3 others that are kind of rolling that we move with them, and they're soft closures. And as parades progress through, that we reopen. But that was it. I just had to. I think we have some more, but I was real quick to get my numbers together, so I had to go through our calendar real quick. I may have missed 1 or 2.
Okay. Greg, can you? Thanks for that, Lieutenant Garcia. It mentions being $24,000 short, but then talks about $13,800. So I'm just not clear on that.
Sure. Thank you. So the bid came in at $158,200, which was over the $70,000 budget that we had, which was from several years ago. The project expanded in scope to accommodate, unfortunately, the modern day terrorism activity of high-speed, larger vehicles. So that's really where we went from simply blocking accidental traffic from coming into to unfortunately purposeful traffic, right? In looking at what the materials were, staff worked with the contractor, and originally they were stainless steel bollards, and we said we can go with the carbon bollards, and that would reduce the cost by $20,000. So now we were at the reduce that by $20,000. That's where the number of $138,200 comes from. And a typical contingency is 10% of a construction contract. If we go underground for, say, sewer or water projects, we look at 15% because there's definitely unforeseen, literally, conditions there. So cumulatively, we're looking for that, taking the money from the police and fire roof replacement project, which we had delivered under budget. And then we have our public works facilities maintenance. So those 2 numbers, the 58 and the 24, can accommodate the full contract plus contingency amount that we need for this project.
Great. Thanks. That answered it. Any questions on it from the council?
No.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve item 8?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. All right. Last one is item 9, consideration and possible action regarding a resolution authorizing application to the Director of Industrial Relations, State of California, for a certificate of consent to self-insure workers' compensation liabilities. And I think Mr. Lilio, Joe, thank you for being here. Just a little bit more background on this one, please. This seemed like a big item, but maybe I'm overstating it.
Yeah, sure. Just provide a little bit of context. Good evening, Mayor Boyles, City Council members. So the city joined the ICRMA Workers' Compensation Program, so it's a pooled insurance plan, in 2003. Prior to 2003, the city just went out with an independent broker and insured this through ourselves. So we did have our own certificate of workers' comp insurance certificate prior to 2003. In 2003, when we joined the ICRMA pool, which was actually the founding of the pool. So there was us and there was 11 other members at the time. ICRMA, as a pool, got its own certificate to insure the 11 members. And I guess what should have happened was each member should have retained their own certificate. That's consistent with the Department of Industrial Relations regulations. And so now we've been going through, ICRMA has been going through a whole reevaluation of its operations and its bylaws, and this was one of the items that did come up.
And there's going to be a new accounting for cost allocation, is that right?
So by going from a pooled certificate and going from that pooled plan, so before all of the loss runs from each agency were pooled together, and each agency's payroll was divided amongst that total loss, and that's how that cost was spread out. But now it's going to be based upon strictly upon the indemnity payments made on behalf of current and former El Segundo employees. So it's going to be based on our own experience moving forward, and that's the case with each of the members.
Got it. And will they be looking at cumulative periods, or is it year to year?
So it's both. So it's year to year, and that's July 1st through June 30 is the program year, and it is a 10-year rolling program. So they're looking at 10 years rolling.
Got it. So even more of an incentive for us to improve our workers' comp practices, safety, et cetera, now than in the past, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Okay. Before it was just kind of blended with everybody, no incentive, it sounds like. Okay.
Correct.
Any questions on this matter? Thank you.
So moved.
Okay. So I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay. All right. New business. Item 10, consideration and possible action related to special event permit applications for 2 separate non-golf events, the Craft Beer and Music Festival and the El Segundo High School Cross Country Invitational Meet, to be held at the lakes at El Segundo, including establishment of facility rental fees, permission to serve alcohol, and authorized closure of the golf course and driving range for a period of time, fiscal impact to be determined. And I think we've got Meredith Pettit, Directors of Rec and Park, that's going to address this one. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. This item that is before you tonight is related to approving non-golf special events at the Lakes Golf Course facility. These are non-city sponsored events as well. Also tonight we'll be discussing establishing the appropriate rental fees for the utilization of the course. Both of these events would require full or partial closure of the facilities, including the driving range, the golf course, the restaurant and pro shop, and also the utilization of the parking lot. Obviously, with those closures, it would have some impact to our regular customers or customers who are coming to play golf for that day who may not have made a tee time in advance. So we want to make sure that we give proper notice to those recurring customers. Over the last several months and years, we've had many discussions about the future of the lakes. And in those discussions, we often find ourselves talking about needing to find creative programming ideas, ways to enhance the park and recreation asset that the lakes is. We know that very few El Segundo residents actually utilize the golf course for its primary purpose, which is playing golf. And so what's in front of you tonight are really creative ways to potentially maximize the exposure of the facility to other visitors in the area, potentially have some direct and indirect revenue opportunities, and also to support other recreational endeavors by our El Segundo residents. So in your packet, you have some descriptions on the two different events that we have received event applications for. The first one is a craft beer and music festival. And the concept of this event is to basically utilize the enclosed area of the driving range portion of the facility. The main entrance and exit for ticket holders will be at the lower level of the driving range. All of the beer and wine vendors, probably about 25 to 30 of them, would be set up on that lower level of the driving range, as well as about five different food vendors. The applicants are proposing to have a VIP area up on the upper deck of the range. Obviously, we would need to have some safety barricades and some proper fencing to make sure that there's a safe area up there for the VIP ticket holders. And the music stage would be in the center of the driving range. The applicants is Huck Street Productions. They recently just held their second annual Brew Lagoon event over in cooperation with the city of Redondo Beach at the Seaside Lagoon. The first year that they had that event, they had been capped at 500 in attendance by the city, and were successful their first year. So this year they were allowed 1,500 attendees. That space is quite smaller than the driving range, so their estimated attendance for this event, they'd really like to see it in about the 4,000 range. We do believe that the driving range can accommodate that. It's quite a large area of space. We do have the applicants here tonight. It's David Tardif, Mike Bouchard, and Christian Krager. Christian Krager, locally restaurateur, owner of the Tavern on Main in Brewport. David Tardif currently has 10 years experience working with Stone Brewing Company, as well as many years of event experience. And Mike Bouchard is bar and nightlife operations and also in event production. Their proposed date is late August or early September. Originally, we were talking about Saturday, August 18th, but have come across many in our conversations, the conflict with the Main Street car show. And since police will be heavily involved in this particular event, the beer festival, if approved, we felt that there were some personnel issues and shortage possibilities. Let's see, again, we have met with the fire department, the police department, and set up some preliminary plans. These event applicants have contracted with Ed Eccles, a local security consultant, to put together a plan, and has proposed 4 undercover, I don't think they're agents, but security guards, and event service staffing of about 35 different positions. The one outstanding item, as far as logistics goes, still is the parking situation. With this event, obviously, the applicants and the event producers will encourage ride sharing using Uber and Lyft services. The parking lot would be set up as primarily a pickup and drop-off area for that. And they are looking into having off-site parking, whether that's across the street at Chevron, one of the adjacent parking structures, and that's still to be determined. They also have noted that there would be a charitable component of donating a percentage back to local organizations. But this is definitely a for-profit venture. Being a first-time event, the applicants will tell you that they are not looking to make a lot of money, but they do have that charitable component to it. One of the main items of discussion tonight is what is, if approved, what is the right rental fee for the closure of the facility based on the impact to the facility, potential lost revenue for a typical day, and really what is the benefit to the city, and what is that right number. I did provide a secondary handout in at your stations there, and was looking at the film permitting fees. Right at the bottom of that page, you can see for a film permit, the different areas and what is charged at the golf course. And a full closure for the golf course for a day for filming adds up to about $15,000 to $15,000, depending on the different locations at the golf course. Right. So one other thing to note would be that, like typical as we do with other special events from outside organizations, is we do track our city expenses, and those are reimbursable by the applicant. So the preliminary police department estimate would be somewhere between 6 to 10 officers would be stationed out at the lakes, and those would be reimbursable costs by the applicant, as well as any public works related activity, parks and rec staff, anybody that would be required to be out there. For these event applications, typically what happens is an event applicant would fill out the application for the permit, and then we route that through the different departments, take a look at the site plan, the fire department weighs in, the police department weighs in, public works weighs in, and we come up with a plan, get back to the applicant stating what our requirements would be, and then it's up to the applicant to say yes, they want to move forward. So I think it's probably best to take one event at a time if you want to ask questions of these applicants, and I can have them come on up.
Do you Council, do you have any questions for Meredith before we go to the applicant?
Meredith, were any financials shared with you? I mean, I know you mentioned a charitable component. Is there any statement as to what percentage or who that charity goes to? Anything along those lines?
I haven't heard a definitive. I know that the Ed Foundation has been discussed, also some veterans-related charity. I'm not sure the exact amount.
And then I see here that in the staff report it says during the commission it was unanimously supported, but based upon the limited information at the time, the discussion wasn't very fruitful. What questions did our commissioners ask?
Sure. So most of them were very supportive of the idea of having this venue be used for non-golf activity, and they really felt that there was opportunity there to maximize the exposure that could come from it and potentially revenue as well. What they didn't have with them, what wasn't provided at the time, was the financial piece that you see in your packet with the Saturdays in August and the Saturdays in September from last year, the revenue that was made on the golf course and the driving range, as well as the number of rounds played. So they did not have that information, so they really didn't feel like they could discuss fees or really the impact to how many people that typically use the facility.
Did they ask any questions about the fallout, the aftermath, like condition of the golf course afterwards? I mean, I know it's mostly self-contained on the driving range,
right?
But with the putting green facility there and check-in, and
yeah.
I mean, if it's a beer festival and we're hoping for 4,000 people, I mean, the golf course has never actually seen 4,000 people at one time.
Right.
So was there any discussion about that at all?
There was some questions. I had the general manager of the Lakes present at the commission meeting, Scott Morgan, and he addressed that, and really didn't have a concern about that amount of people on the driving range itself. As far as for set up and breakdown, bringing on a stage and setting up a stage, we would mark all of the irrigation heads and all the sprinkler system and make sure that any heavy equipment would be avoiding that type of equipment on the turf. But as far as the grass itself, the golf management company felt that, within a week or so it would probably bounce back. Not too concerned.
So, but primarily this was going to be on the driving range? Or
this particular event is all on the driving range.
So is the grade of the ground level enough? Or, I mean, because we've never really put people there before. Mm-hmm. So is there any potholes or things that we should be wary of, people having, some beer, walking around a field that really hasn't been graded for public usage?
Sure. I think we would definitely require a walkthrough and making sure that, however many weeks prior to, and make sure that any major holes or divots or anything were either patched or marked appropriately. The slope, most of their tents and things like that are going to be on that lower level, so that's where it's more flat. And the stage, I think, has a leveling system that they can do. But as far as people walking around, the slope is not, as steep as I would be concerned.
And then
about.
would we be charging the fee to do that a survey of the plot to make sure that it was walkable and usable? And whatever, like say
if
we come
across
across
additional resources to do, yes.
So maybe it would require us to do some filling of potholes or holes. Like I said, we haven't used that land for public use in forever. So I'm just kind of concerned that we may want to do an assessment of the land first.
Yeah, I think there may be gopher holes and things like that. Obviously there's not a lot of foot activity. The range pickers drive it every night, and So I can definitely check back with Scott on his assessment of the condition. We would require a security deposit as well for any damages, and the applicant would be held responsible for any damages above and beyond.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Chris?
Was there any discussion of different compensation models besides a rental and reimbursement? The for-profit condo approach and ask for any percent of the.
No.
Oh, you put your mic on.
That button is not clearly marked. Have that removed. I demand red buttons.
No, we haven't discussed another model.
And then the last thing was on the parking. I mean, are we talking, I know you're talking about encouraging people to Uber, but is there any requirement to put a shuttle service? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there really isn't a parking lot in close proximity for the number of cars that I think we would anticipate. If it was across the street at Chevron, which Chevron has not agreed to yet, we would definitely want a shuttle service. In talking to the police department, you know, they're urging us to try to find locations that are on the same side of Sepulveda, just because even though there is a light and a crosswalk at, you know, either side, doesn't necessarily mean people will use them.
All right, and then we'll get to you guys one sec, please. Mark, City Attorney, from a legal standpoint, what's the risk exposure here?
Well, we're going to require significant amount of insurance by the motors, so it'll have to be that will be our key, is to get significant insurance from them. And I think there's good points raised about, is that property suitable for that use, and staff could need to look at that carefully. So I think those are both, but ultimately it's going to be insurance.
Okay, thanks. And then Meredith, one more question. Did anyone on your staff talk to Redondo about how it went? I know they upped the attendance, but in terms of police issues or anything that happened?
I didn't speak directly to Redondo yet. I think I plan to, but I actually went and checked out the event myself and spoke to them after the event, and they reported no incidents.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Brand, did you have any questions? Okay. All right. Would you guys like to address the council with some, maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview, Christian, and then we'll ask some questions, I'm sure, as a follow-on.
All right, Christian Krieger. Just to go over the hours, it starts at 2. So that would allow the golf course to be open probably, let's just say noon for now. So it would be open in the morning hours. The putting green will be blocked off, so there will be no access to that, and there will be security right there anyway. That's right where the VIP thing goes up. We haven't actually walked that area, but we have gone down there, and it is primarily flat. That's why it's going to be, the stage is bound to be about the 125 estimated, but we can move it up and back based on how many people are actually buying tickets. And again, the parking scenario, we haven't talked to Chevron, but from the aerial view, they have a nice big giant one right across the street. So by having shuttles there, and there is a fence, so it's not like they can go over there and the shuttles just continuously go across the street. If not, we can try Raytheon and stay on the same side of the street and still have a shuttle service.
General Manager Scott was also talking about options of actually parking cars on the golf course. I think there's a gate on Sepulveda that can open up, can go on the first fairway, the second fairway, and the third fairway. That's another option.
Like the Rose Bowl.
Okay, council questions?
You said the event starts at 2. What time does setup begin?
Probably about 6 in the morning.
But that'd be coming through the back gate.
The back part of the driving range.
But the driving range is shut down all day.
Correct.
I had asked staff the question about financials, charity, what percentage, how that works. My understanding with these types of events is, depending upon who is running it, it's, 10% of the total net is going to go to the charity, but the operating costs are so large that the net is so small that 10% is $100, $1,000. And so it's, for us, this being an event first of its kind, it just seems like kind of a skeleton application. Like I'm begging for more information.
Well, as far as the charity part, no, we haven't quite decided.
Well, actually, so I'm just going to actually step away because this is my first time I heard about it as well, and so I just want to make sure I recuse myself of this discussion, given my connection to the foundation. So I'm just going to step back.
Right. I mean, it could be a music thing. I mean, Dave's a veteran, so he wants to do a veteran booth and all that sort of stuff. Whether it could just be, manning a T-shirt booth. All the T-shirt money goes to the charity. So we haven't quite worked all that out because where all these expenditures are going to leave us out there. So if we want to get them involved and not just go, okay, here's a check, do it. So if it's selling all the merchandise and half the proceeds from there, or
we could also look at parking, charging for parking at a minimal rate. That also can go to the charity.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out different revenue streams beyond the 10% that we can donate to the charity, get them a good amount of money.
So if Chevron allows us to use their thing, we would man it, charge like $5, and all that money go to the charity. Chevron feels better about using it as well.
What's your forecasted revenue expectation? Best, worst case scenario?
Well, if we sold out at 5,000 people, you're looking at generating close to about 300,000 people. I mean, $300,000.
I mean, that's
at 5,000. So I mean, you break it down 1,000.
So is it you pay a price, you get beer and food, or are you buying the beer and food? What's the model?
So what the model is you pay $50 to get in. That gets you a little taster cup. You have the opportunity to taste the different beers, wines, ciders, and everything that we have available. Food is an extra cost. So with the $50, you get the tastings plus 5 bands that you're going to be able to listen to. So it's pretty affordable for what we're offering.
Okay.
And this is definitely an all-you-can-drink. There's no governor line.
It's not an all-you-can-drink because we're not really filling up a bunch of glasses. It's more like 2-ounce tasters. And yes, you can taste throughout the entire day. Correct.
I recall hearing about an event where with your ticket, you were allowed so many tastes. And so it somewhat put a limit on how intoxicated the participants became.
Correct. But with this, doing as many events as I have in the past, the unlimited format is actually kind of a better format because even with the events that we've offered 10 tickets, people won't even drink all 10 of them. So the perception of them getting a great value for what they're doing is exaggerated when you tell them it's unlimited pours. And they pretty much all drink about the same. And another great thing, too, is the demographic that we attract is pretty much the people that are sitting in this room. At the Seaside Lagoon or the Brew Lagoon event we had, we have 0 issues because it's the people that are there. And you were asking about the other council members. At Redondo Beach, we had Laura MB there. She was quoted in the Easy Reader saying that this was a fantastic event and that she thinks that this could be one of the largest events in the South Bay. That's what her vision was. So there were city council members at our last event.
And the timing of 2 to 7 is kind of strategic. It's kind of like it's too early for people to be, going out and drunk beforehand, and it's not late. It's kind of a relatively short period of time. Not everybody's going to be at the gate at the first. So for the most part, people are going to be there 2 hours.
And it's music involved too. So you're not just sitting there drinking all day long. You're sitting down on the grass, you're looking at the music, you're listening to everything, you're getting something to eat. We have food, we have water stations. So if you can come to one of these events, you'll see it's extremely well executed.
Are the pours all being conducted by volunteers, or is that security staff who governs those?
We offer volunteers to all of our suppliers, or they pour it themselves. Correct.
I'm sorry, self-pouring?
No, no, it's all poured by the suppliers, which are the breweries or volunteers that they have.
Councilman Brand, did you have a comment? Okay. I had a question for one thing, I don't get excited about the idea of providing a bunch of additional parking for a drinking event. I think anything we can do to encourage people to take Lyft or Uber, it's just so easy. I don't know why you would even want to contemplate getting in your car after a beer festival.
We agree 100%.
Okay. And then I had a question for staff, and now I'm drawing a blank on it. It'll come to me, I'm sure. Definitely we need to discuss the fee. And what was the arrangement that you had with the Brew Lagoon? The
city
this
charges,
one and going forward?
City charges right around $3,500 for the Seaside Lagoon.
Oh, I know what the question was for staff. In the past, it seems like we've been inconsistent. There was an applicant that applied for beer sales, for example, at part of the hometown fair, also city land, right? And didn't get approved, and they were tied directly to a charity. And here we are considering a for-profit that has a to-be-determined and defined charitable component to it. So can you maybe speak to what we've done in the past from a policy standpoint?
Sure. The hometown fair, if I recall, I think we have not had alcohol at hometown fair for 6 or 7 years, and I think there was a beer garden there for maybe 2 years. The reason why that was denied and then really not pursued, I think the difference is that that's a city event, and it's targeted towards school and families and lots of children. This one I view as a little bit different in that it's an outside organization. It's a 21 and over event, and it's not a city-sponsored event. So that's, for me, where I would distinguish the two.
When we serve alcohol there.
True. The golf course does have a beer and wine license.
Okay. And would you have to secure another beer and wine license or use the one that's already in place? How does it?
We use Christian's catering liquor license. The golf course will have to relinquish their liquor license for the day, and then we get a 1-day permit from the ABC. That's how we do it at the Brew Lagoon.
Okay. All right. Well, council, thoughts on this and the feast? Do you have any more questions for the applicant?
Just one other question. Events like this, the build-up and the upfront costs invested into doing an event like this, the goal is never to have it be a one-off, correct?
Correct.
Do you have any concern as the organizers of this event that golf course may not be in its same capacity 1 year from today?
Not at all.
It's crossing our mind, but the way things go, we think.
So you have a contingency plan. Your thoughts are okay if we can do this for 2 years, we'll be all right.
We'd like to keep it going, and if it goes the way we want, we could expand it and maybe even use.
Just saying it might not be.
I know. Yeah, that's the risk we're willing to take.
Okay, and then I just did some quick arithmetic here. So $3,500 for Seaside Lagoon. Were there any additional costs for police services, things like that?
Yes.
And they allowed a cap at 1,500 people.
Correct.
So for the event space alone, that's $2.33 a person, and we're talking 5,000 people for the lakes potentially?
Correct.
On that same math, you're talking over $11,000 for apple-to-apple comparison. That's without any police fees, things like that. That, just since you're here, so we don't let you sit down, discuss fees, and then ask you to come back up, a number of that size, does that fall anywhere on your spreadsheet as being okay?
Higher than.
Yes. Exactly. $15,000 to rent the facility would be pretty excessive. We don't have the budget of the film industry. That would cut into our costs, and we'd have to really evaluate if we could actually pull it off with a fee that high, to be honest with you. Yeah, so depending on what the police department feels about how much security we bring, the captain informed us that will determine how many police that they'll have to have there.
Do the brewers have to pay to be there?
No.
Okay.
And we buy all the beer.
Okay.
That's why it's important for us to get started on this as soon as possible, because something like this, the ticket sales determine everything. how much beer we have to buy, how much security we're going to need, all that stuff.
What kind of timeline do you need to get that done? Let's say this event was middle of September.
We'd start immediately. We'd have to start immediately. We have Brad Smith, who's been in the promotion industry for a long time. He's working closely with us to help get this event up and off the ground and hopefully sold out.
We're going to do it before Labor Day, so it's really only one weekend after the car show.
Meredith, do you have a sense of a venue like ours? I know we're not-for-profit government agency, but just what the replacement venue cost would be, something like that? Or maybe you guys could tell me. 4,000, 5,000 capacity venue, what would you be paying in the private market for that?
Brad could tell you.
For a rental?
Yeah.
Completely depends on the situation. But in a regular situation, it'd probably be about $1.25 per person, depending on the spot. So say it's 4,000, probably be about $5,500. Then there's all these other little ancillary situations where you're going to make money on, like the lakes. The lakes will make money on like other things, like the T-shirt sales. So if they take a portion of that and they take a portion of, say we have 5 different food vendors and they get 10% of that, and they'll hit a percentage on all of the things that we bring in. And that's how they add up their money. And like, for instance, I'm doing an event Saturday that I'm producing at Santa Anita Racetrack, if anybody's familiar with the racetrack, for 10,000 people. Because they get to keep the revenue on the beer, I don't pay anything for the venue. They actually give me $1 on each beer that's sold, because I'm paying for, and that's one big thing that no one's mentioned, is the biggest cost of all, which is the talent. You're not going to get 4,000 or 5,000 people there to drink 2-ounce tasters. You're just not. I mean, I'm sorry guys, but I mean, I've been in this business for a long time, and so you have to have some talent. You have to have some talent, some musical talent that people will be excited to go to. And because this is the type of event it is, you're going to have good talent. And then you're going to have to, we don't want to bring in, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like a band like Pennywise, which is a crazy nut job band. We don't want a band like that. We want bands that are going to keep the crowd mellow and keep everything fun and fresh, but not, we don't want anybody, we're not going for that crazy event. It's a mellow, it's just, if anyone reads the article about Brew Lagoon, they just did, or even the event I'm doing on Saturday, it's all, we keep everything low and easy. And one thing you mentioned, which kind of made me laugh, sorry, I chuckled, when you're talking about the 2-ounce unlimited tasters. Well, you drink 2 or 3 ounces of beer and then you stand in a line there to get the next one. So you might drink maybe 3 beers, the whole time you're there, maybe 4 in a 5-hour span.
You don't put that on your flyer, right?
No.
Oh.
No, but here's the deal. But here's the thing. At Santa Anita, it's as fast as they can sell them, which it's not my choice. That's Santa Anita Racetrack. They sell the beer. So in a situation like this, like he was saying, it's a much safer, thing. And what you were talking about Uber, I'm 1,000% with that. Almost all my events, I just did Neon Carnival at Coachella, and we're like, you have to take Uber. We won't let you park. So I don't know how these guys feel about that, but I'm very passionate about what I do, and I have no problem with saying we're not going to let anybody park. So everyone that's going to come to this event is from El Segundo, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Redondo, and probably a little bit of Torrance. That's where I see the people. I don't think people are going to come in from Los Angeles too much to come to an event like this. So I think everybody's going to be able to hop an Uber, roll down there, and as long as we have it done correctly, like we did it like Neon Carnival or like we do at Santa Anita, it's like, the Ubers come in, they're done professionally, and it's like you get a number and boom, 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 you're through. Because I don't want anybody driving home. I don't want to be responsible for anybody getting hurt at any event that I have to do. And pertaining to your legal question, pertaining to what we'd have to put, we're going to carry at least a $10 million policy on the event, which I only carry 5 at Santa Anita, and that's a pretty big racetrack, if you're familiar with it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Got it.
How did Redondo pencil out for you guys? Maybe you could talk about the financials for that event.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
I mean, what did you guys net on that event? How did you do?
You know
were
what?
the
We didn't
gross
do all.
proceeds?
It covered our costs. We came in around 800 ticket sales. So we were just a little bit above profit. So that's why we decided to bring somebody like Brad on for these events to help us sell them out.
So the issue wasn't expense, it was you didn't have attendance, or what was?
Correct. If we would have hit the 1,500 mark, we would have done well.
Okay.
Do you have any age demographics on the Redondo event?
The Redondo event pretty much spanned from about 26 to about 50, 54, and main amount were in the 28 to 48 range.
Did that have a band as well? Was there a band playing?
There were 5 of them.
Who played?
We had Kira Lingman, we had Fart Barf, we had the Royal Rats, and Stone. I forgot. And they all did great.
Okay, any other questions for the applicants? Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, and we know, though, that the lakes, I mean, there's an opportunity from a revenue standpoint, there's an opportunity of at least, I don't know, $3,000 to $4,000 for the course and range on an average day, an average Saturday. Council thoughts, Scott?
I still think there's more information to be had, is my gut feeling. And I think for us to be presented with something where we've never discussed a fee structure before, and we don't know what it is, we don't know what our future is with that site, and if we have a future with that site, what is our plan moving forward? I feel if we make a decision today, and we say this is what we're going to charge, and this is the type of event that we're going to welcome, then more applications are just going to come, and it's going to just become an event space. And is that what we want for big picture for the lakes? These are the thoughts that I'm having, and we haven't gone through that discussion. I'm concerned that there's a charity component. That's nice. It's like the cherry on top of the sundae, but I don't know. It's just there's not enough information in my mind.
Thanks. Dr. Brand, how do you feel?
I'm interested in giving it a try. Come up with a fee that we think's somewhere's in the middle of the road and check it out. Not sure I want to go there to hear any of those bands I just heard listed. But each to his own.
Thank you. Councilman Pimentel.
I will echo Councilman Brand a bit. I mean, far be it me to presuppose the value of a fart barf tank top. I do think that there is merit to looking at all usable costs for this. I think we have a guiding document that roughly puts us in line, per Scott's math, on the per participant charge for that. I think some of it is the metrics and the economics of how much do our fully burdened employees on top of that warrant is something that is ultimately a financial decision based on their ticket price. You know, what they want to do to compensate us for what it takes to lose our facility and put our fully burdened employees. Unlike a lot of promotional venues, you know, we lose the advantage of capturing a % of concessions, food, and beer. You know, if this were House of Blues, we get 70% of every drink. We're not going to be getting that at a beer festival here. So the compensation for that has to be on the front end of this, and I don't think that a wild estimate of the golf course total rental fee less the fee for the golf course, if it's not in use, that puts us at $12,500, which is right about the number that we were talking about per head for the Brew Lagoon. So I don't by any sense think that that's gospel and that we need to hammer down the exact price, but I think that we're in the neighborhood on the data that we have in front of us.
Okay, thank you. And any thoughts on the charitable component? Do we want to ask for definition on that? I know that you want more information in general.
I guess I asked the question of the applicant as to timeline, because my thought is, you know, if we give this back to them and say, hey, come back with a little bit more information, answer these questions for us, like have your little campfire talk, figure out exactly what it is, and put together an application that is, all the details are there. So it doesn't come to fruition and it happens and it's like, wait, what was the charity? What was the percentage? Like, wow, that's nice. You know, I'd rather have that information in front of us. This is the first of its kind at this venue. And, you know, I mean, that's 2 events in one venue, and and the staff report's a page and a half. It's just, I think that we need to talk about this. We need more information. I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not against the idea of using the course as a venue. I mean, we've talked about this years ago, and it's something that if it hasn't been discussed and the commission couldn't even come up with discussion points as to what fee to charge and to come back to us and make a recommendation to us, and then here it is, we're just going to do this on the fly. I think that is poor use of our time.
Meredith, if we had a couple weeks to come back with some recommendations to staff, would that help? I'm prepared to make a decision tonight. I think we've got enough, to Chris's point and to Don's. I think we've got enough to work with given the supporting documentation you provided. I think about the lakes, Scott, a little bit in the sense that, to what Meredith said earlier, I mean, we know less than 10% of our residents use it on a regular basis. And we also know, so it's a highly underutilized asset the city has. We also know that the golf course subcommittee approved it. A couple details to work out, but those are a lot of golfers represented on that subcommittee, if I remember correctly, and they supported it. And
if those logistics are not worked out, they have council approval, and they go on with the event.
So what are the logistics? What would you like to see worked out?
The details.
Well, let's give some specifics to staff. Like
parking details, cost details. I mean, if there's many logistics that will need to be worked out between staff, the golf course management, and the event applicants, can we talk about those details so that we can have those details in front of us? I mean, the residents of the city ask us to make these decisions based upon the information that's given, and we're having people from the golf subcommittee and from the Recreations and Park Commission to say, hey, yeah, in theory, we support the event, but there's not a lot of information that we're given at the time. So I love things in theory, but this is real life, and it's going to happen in September. So I just want that information, and if that information comes back to us in 2 weeks, and we say, this is great, thank you so much, you've done the analytics on this, the cost, here we go. Let's move forward. And I don't think that derails the event.
Chris and Don, are you prepared to make a vote, or would you rather wait and get more information?
We're ready to vote.
I'm ready to vote.
All right, so we need a motion then, and maybe be as specific as you can with what the motion is that you're moving.
You do have the option of taking a vote tonight and directing staff to make sure that certain things are incorporated in the approval. Do we know have we identified the nonprofit and the percentage, for instance?
I think that, Greg, that's where we're looking for a little bit more direction right now. Would be if we had, I think there's a couple big unknowns. One is parking, right? I don't think we should advocate for a ton of parking, but people are going to want to drive there. Hopefully they have a designated driver program. Big unknowns. I mean, I can absolutely see people meandering across the street and the police having to control people because they're trying to walk to the Chevron lot, for example, across PCH. So we don't know about that. We don't know about the charity. So there are some significant unknowns. If we could put some structure on that so we're not holding them up at the same time, that would be, maybe it's something like a parking and transportation program to be approved by the city manager and the chief of police along those lines.
That's exactly what I was suggesting. Just identify, if Scott is concerned about specific issues, identify those, direct staff to work with this applicant to address those. Staff will do that.
Okay. Scott, do you want to specify what you want some direction on specifically? I named a couple.
Well, there was a few things discussed. One was trying to stay on the same side of the street. The applicant talked about potentially talking to Chevron and using a lot across the street. What shuttles? I mean, I guess I would lean more to the experts on this to see what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But I definitely do not want staff to do what we've done in the past, which is square peg round hole and just make it work. And so that's where, I don't know, I guess you guys can give direction to them as to what you think they should do for parking. Because without their suggestions and without a report coming back and them saying, this is what we can do, this is the capacity, this is the parking covenant, blah, 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 I'm kind of at a loss here. I'm giving them blind direction.
Yeah, so typically through the event permitting process, once we have all the information, I mean, this one is definitely a different and unique situation because we don't have a fee structure and we don't typically permit events at the golf course. So this is why it's in front of you tonight. So given, you know, approval on a fee and just conceptually on the event concept, that gives us enough go-ahead to then really work out what these parking details are. I think, you know, we're a little hesitant to secure parking from Raytheon or Chevron without an approval from the city to even have the event. So this is really, you know, going to catapult us into the details and working with outside agencies on securing those shuttles and things like that. Now, all of our event permits require signatures and sign off from the police chief, the fire chief, the public works director, myself, and working with the city attorney on assessing what the risk is and what insurance policies will be required. So it still has to go through all of those measures, and everybody has to sign off on the plan in order to actually issue the permit.
Would it be appropriate to, as you suggested, go to vote on the fee structure and the event itself conditionally, and then have them come back with some more specifics next council meeting in terms of parking, logistics, and the other issues we have concern about, and then we could give it the final green light if we so desire at that time?
I think that would be a really great way to move forward, because then they can also pencil that into their budget and figure out the charitable component and what these reimbursable costs are going to look like.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the event at a fee no less than $12,500, and that the group, staff comes back at the next council, ideally June 5th, with some more specifics in terms of transportation, logistics, and the charitable organization that's going to benefit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Thank you very much. Uncharted territory. It's interesting to note that some of the applicants for the golf course going forward through this RFP process, now that we've extended it and ensured that it's much broader in nature, are venue type companies. So I think, you know, this could be the beginning of something else. Okay. Carol, thanks for joining us. Carol had a potential conflict of interest issue as Executive Director of Ed Foundation. So Mayor Pro Tem, thanks for joining us, for coming back. So then we have another issue related to, or another item regarding the high school cross-country invitational meet.
Right, exactly. Thank you. So the second event that we're reviewing at this time, same conversation regarding what is the appropriate fee, and is this an appropriate use for the course? El Segundo High School cross-country team has submitted an application to have an invitational cross-country meet. This is a basically the beginning of the cross-country season. The cross-country team of the high school has held a league meet at Recreation Park for the last 2 years and has received Recreation and Parks Commission each of those years to do that at the Recreation Park. And the last time the cross-country coach was presenting to the commission, he kind of just stated that, you know, it would be a dream of his to have a course on the golf course and have it as a fundraising invitational meet. And so we got to talking a little bit about it, and that's why it's here in front of you tonight. The event proposed is Saturday, September 8th. The meet itself would start at about 7:45 in the morning and conclude at about 12:30 p.m. and be fully off-site by 1:30 p.m. There would be some setup early in the morning as well as the day before, marking the running course. The running course would start and finish on the driving range. And basically it gives it the starting lane wide enough to where you have different groups of runners, and they start off kind of all together on one, and they funnel into more of a line, you know, thinner line as they go through the course. The course is about 3 miles, and it winds throughout the 9 holes. And we would require, and it's been marked with basically cones. They'll have volunteers out there providing directions, as well as maybe chalk or field paint on the turf itself. All of the runners will avoid any sensitive turf areas like the putting greens and the tee boxes. And they anticipate inviting and holding about 25 to 30 teams. The team buses would, the proposal is to park the team buses and unload the runners on Hughes Way, and basically not have buses or any real vehicle traffic in the parking lot. The parking lot would be used for team staging. They put up their canopies and they warm up, different activities, and then handicap access as well for parking. We have Marcos Bolanos, who is the cross-country coach here tonight, and he can answer your questions. This event obviously varies from the event we were just discussing, in the way that we do have a joint use agreement with the school district. It does allow reciprocal use of district facilities and city facilities. The golf course subcommittee and the Recreation and Parks Commission were very supportive of this in the respect of supporting the school district, youth sports, and also helping to raise funds for cross-country to travel. The map is in your packet and shows some preliminary parking areas. Again, Raytheon and Chevron are really the conversation for spectator parking. All of the athletes will be coming in buses and walking from where they unload on Hughes Way. This one provides the lakes a bit more opportunity in the way of our restaurant could remain open during this, and we could have food and beverage service and potentially reap some benefit on concessions. And the cross-country coach is open to the lakes providing that service and keeping the proceeds. So I'll take any questions, and we have the applicant here as well.
Great. Council have questions? Is this pretty typical? I've never heard of a cross-country meet or event on a golf course.
Through my discussions with Marcos, they do one at Brookside Golf Course, adjacent to the Rose Bowl. That event is done annually as well.
And the racers, they don't leave the golf course? Everything's done on the course? They don't go off on the streets, the route? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all done on the course and on the driving range.
Okay. How far are they going?
It's about 3 miles.
Yeah, maybe we, if you wouldn't mind, Coach Blonis, would you approach the podium and can you give us a little insight into the event and why it's important to you and the team and stuff?
Yeah, sure. First, I'd like to Meredith for all her help so far, and thank you guys for having me here. The biggest thing that we're looking to do for this is kind of highlight our program and the great successes that we've had as a group of runners. It's primarily going to act as a fundraiser for our team. Last year, I was fortunate enough to put together a trip for our elite runners to take them up to Portland to showcase their talents at a big Nike Invitational, which had over 160 teams from different schools from 8 different states. Our girls finished 3rd and our guys finished 7th in that race, which was pretty elite company. So this year, my plan is I'd like to take them actually up to Seattle, Washington for a different meet invitational up there. So this would help go towards buying some new exclusive uniforms for the varsity group, paying for some of the air travel and the hotel stay, for which I had to do a lot of fundraising last year just to try to pay for some of that last year. So the goal is to try to incent the kids to really work hard, which they do every single day, and use some of the fees that we'd get from each team, and then maybe working some way with concessions and t-shirt sales and that to go towards helping support the program. I recently took over the track program as well, so whatever spillover I have would go towards buying equipment for the track team and apparel or whatever the kids need for the next season as well. So that's the kind of the big motivator here.
And then Marcos, where is the closest invitational locally? Because I mean, most of them are pretty kind of far away, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's 2 locally. There's one South or North Torrance holds the South Bay Champs, and I think it's Wilson Park, the one that's off of Prairie. Is that right? 190th. They have one there. It's not that big, just mainly for South Bay schools. And then PV has one. They have their own historic cross-country course, kind of nestled below one of the middle schools over there. But again, they're kind of limited on space there. But those are the two that are in our immediate area. But other than that, this is only one. And just a little perspective, for golf courses, this would be only one of two in all of Southern California that are actually on a golf course, which is the primary way outside of California. But for some reason, California is really not into it. But the one at Brookside at the Rose Bowl would be actually the night right before ours, and then ours would be the next day. So it'd be kind of fun just to see how it goes.
I want to commend you. I know you were at the Founders Cup by the PTA. Carol and I
you.
were there, and Scott was there as an awardee, and I just want to congratulate you for all you've done building that cross-country team. I know you've had a ton of success in the last few years. So
Thank you. I appreciate
congrats.
that. Congratulations to you guys as well.
Okay, any other questions for the coach?
What's your target number of funding to raise?
I'd like to raise around $5,000 total revenue, my net, so that I could pay for that would cover all the hotel and a majority of the airfare, so the kids maybe have to come out of pocket with $75 to $100.
So 5,000 in net?
Yeah.
And how much do you think this will raise? What do you charge per team to enter?
It's about $450 to $500 per team, and that covers a boy and girl squad, up to 80 to 100 participants per team. I'm looking to get about 25 to 30 teams. I want to cap it at 30. No way I'm going to go over that. One, I don't want need any more gray hair, and two, it just becomes really clustered at that point. So I want to make it a fun first event, seeing as how this is the first year, see how it goes. So everyone that comes has an enjoyable time and it's not just overburdened right off the bat.
Where would they be coming from? What other cities? Or
As soon as you guys tell me if this is approved and the fee structure looks right, I'm going to send it to anyone that's within 100-mile radius. Given the proximity to LAX, if this becomes a notable event that trying to team up with some local vendors like Skechers, they have a performance running line now that I think they want to highlight, and they've sponsored a few events outside of the LA area, big ones. So I'd like to get them going, and being this close to LAX, I think we can get people coming from different places, different parts of California and the Southwest as well. And it's a good opportunity to have people come and see the beautiful city of El Segundo. So.
All right. Other questions?
It definitely brings people to town. And we could notify the restaurants locally, because after the races, generally the kids are really hungry.
Yeah.
And so the restaurants, especially that In-N-Out, would be quite busy.
Oh yeah. It's a great opportunity, I think. And and talking to Meredith and Sean, originally, is I would like this to be a team effort with local businesses to get people, after an event, go and kind of stroll Main Street and check out what's down there, or have them highlight at the actual event as well.
All right. Any other coaches or questions for the coach? All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Meredith, what do you recommend on this one? How would you like to see us move forward?
Well, I think as far as the fee, Marcos is aware of the lakes and our concern with revenue. He is willing to build in a fee payable to rent the facility. We haven't talked about specific numbers. You can see that on a typical Saturday in September, we're probably right around the $3,000 mark. And, ultimately, given the feedback from Golf Course Subcommittee and the Rec Park Commission, we're definitely interested in supporting the school on this. We like to have them out at Rec Park. We like to see them enjoy our recreational facilities. So, I'm 100% supportive of the event, and as long as we can provide enough notice to our clientele over at the lakes and plan for it appropriately, the revenue isn't as much of a concern for me on this event.
Do you anticipate reimbursable expenses? Certainly not to the degree as the other event, but what do you anticipate in terms of city expenses?
I do. However, we really don't anticipate a lot of city support services needed. The main thing might be to post parking signs on Hughes Way. Basically just, bus loading zone, or it's already a no parking zone on Hughes Way. And so it's really about if we need to bag those signs at all, or if the police department just is aware of it and not enforcing the no parking on that day for this particular event. So there really isn't a lot of city staff expense associated with this particular event. Again, the parking is the one thing that is still to be determined on spectator parking, that where that location is going to be, and then ensuring that there's, you know, pedestrian safety measures put in place for the spectators wherever they're walking from. This one, we haven't discussed a shuttle service for it. Marcos has pointed out that in other cross-country meets, parents are used to walking quite a ways. In fact, on the Brookside course for the Rose Bowl, parents can walk almost a mile from where they're parking to where the course is. So as long as they know ahead and they have that ability to communicate that out to the parents and participants, you know, they'll be aware of that.
And then you're anticipating just taking ownership of the concessions and doing different type of concessions out of the clubhouse.
Yeah, we definitely see this as an opportunity to provide food and beverage service.
Because people will be kind of constrained in that location, so
Right.
you're kind of have an active, you know, an engaged audience.
Definitely, and Scott Morgan is really on board and already kind of got the wheels spinning on what the possibilities are, whether that's, you know, just the restaurant or coming outside and doing some sort of a barbecue or some food service outside as well.
What would you, I know we've got, as we're looking at the Chamber of Commerce Main Street Car Show, there's the fee structure and the discounted fee structure based on the scorecard. Could we
Yeah.
use that type methodology for this?
We could. We definitely could. I think it comes out to, I did that roughly, I think it was about in the 50% range when we ran through the scorecard.
So 50% of what we think we would get normally in revenue is what you'd be recommending, something along those lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting though, because if we're going to be handling concessions,
You're going to make money.
we're going to make money they wouldn't otherwise make. One question: do we hold? I think the answer is yes, but high school golf tournaments or youth tournaments on the
Yes.
facility?
Yes.
And what do they pay to host a golf tournament, like a school golf tournament?
They pay the greens fee.
That's it.
So, and those haven't been El Segundo unified, by the way? So those are
We don't have a
outside-
golf team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just the green fees for whatever time, however many tee times they need, that sort of thing.
Correct.
Okay. I like the scorecard idea.
Starting point. Again, new ground for us, right? So, okay. Councilman Pimpensell, thought.
It hadn't occurred to me with the scorecard application, because I think that they're looking at $11,000 in gross, so there's room to maneuver underneath that. I do like the idea of us charging for very expensive Gatorade at the event, and what looked like the typical cost for that day, for the typical revenue for that date range is about just over $3,600. So if we come in at 50% of that, you know, at $1,800 plus the really expensive sodas and burgers, that sounds like a good idea for the city.
Councilman Brand? Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that we approve. I'll make a motion that we approve use of the facility for the case made stipulated, and that we charge 50%. Well, let's just put a number in there. We charge.
You said 18.
What'd you say? $1,750.
We call it even two.
Whoa. It's the schools and we're selling expensive Gatorade.
We charge. I'd say
$1,500.
$1,750, right in the middle there. The two, and that we. Yeah, that's it.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to take a recess. It's 20:30 on my watch. We'll be back by 20:41. Time 2041, back in session. And we are on item 11. Consideration and possible action to waive all city fees supporting the 2018 Main Street Car Show as requested by El Segundo Police Officers Association and the El Segundo Chamber of Commerce, and allow the operation of a beer garden on public property during the event. Fiscal impact approximately $6,150. So who is going to be addressing this item?
Meredith Pettit, our Director of Recreation and Parks.
Meredith, thank you again.
Yes.
Yeah.
As well as the next.
Working overtime tonight, thank you.
So event season is upon us, obviously. This item comes to you as a request from the El Segundo Chamber of Commerce as well as the El Segundo Police Officers Association. They have joined forces for the second year in a row to organize the Main Street Car Show, taking place on August 18th on Main Street. And I provided in the staff report some background information and attachments, particularly because a policy that was created back in 2014 wanted to provide that background information for the council. But in 2014, as a result of a council subcommittee, some policies were adopted by the city council regarding special event fee waivers and how to apply percentages of those fee waivers to certain events. You referenced it in the last discussion, but what was ultimately adopted was a system that we use, a scorecard, which basically provides a point system, and application could get points based on the type of organization, whether it's a fundraising event or not, what the target audience is. So if it's more general public or open to the public, you receive more points than it being an exclusive or invitation only event. If it's free to participate, you receive more points than if it's charged for participation. Community benefit, and also the impact. Impact meaning either a street closure, amplified sound, or property wear and tear. So all of that combined to a total of 25 points as the maximum. And then there's a scale, and that associates the event with a certain percentage that the fees would be waived. So that background information is provided to you. In 2014, the Main Street Car Show scorecard included in your packet received 20 points, and that put them at the 75% fee waiver category. I do want to make a note of the colorful sheet in your packet. The estimated fees at the time were much lower than they are today. That is because we now use fully burdened rates on staff that previously we were not using. We were just using the hourly associated fee. And also we have values that are used to apply to pieces of equipment. So barricades, the mobile stage, vehicles that are used for hard closures and things like that. Those fees are also applied to the city expenses. So estimated that this year's event, the support services provided by city personnel and equipment totals $6,150. And the car show, like I said, does have already approved for a 75% fee waiver. And this year they've come to us asking for a full fee waiver, 100% of the fees. And there was some precedent set in the last 2 years. In 2016, the POA bowed out from organizing the event, and the El Segundo Chamber took it over basically to continue the event, knowing that it does have some benefit to the downtown merchants. And so they took it on exclusively in 2016, came to the city council, asked for the support to fully waive all of the fees, and was granted that approval. In 2017, the POA and the chamber combined forces, and they felt like You know, they wanted to put the event on together. They split the proceeds 50-50. And at that time, they also came to the city council asking for a 100% fee waiver, and the city council granted that request on a 3-2 vote, basically based on the conversation of economic development and the fact that the city would receive some sponsorships and benefit in return. Given that it was the centennial year, they felt that it was a good gesture. So here we are in 2018. Both organizations have made the same request to the city council, and tonight we have Jeff Derringer, who's representing El Segundo POA, to answer any specific questions. I did speak to Marcia from the chamber, and she did provide some financial information. Last year, the event gross revenue was $8,800. Their shared expenses were $2,100, so their net revenue was $6,700, and they split that 50-50. So each organization made about $3,350. Also, the POA handles merchandise sales, that they purchase merchandise and sell that and keep the proceeds on their side, and the chamber solicits for sponsorships, and they keep those entirely on their side. Thank you.
Meredith, are you saying that the T-shirt sales and the sponsorships were in addition to the $8,800 in revenue?
Yes.
Do we know how much roughly?
I don't know.
Okay.
And also, in addition, the request for this year is a new request, and that is to operate a beer garden. They are proposing the garden to be on Holly Avenue, just adjacent to Main Street, and operated under the chamber's ABC license, which they've pulled before for different events throughout town. And proceeds from the beer garden will be added to the revenue that's split 50-50 between those two groups.
Thanks, Meredith. Questions for Meredith or council comments?
Do we have any idea what increase in revenue the merchants on Main Street incurred during this event?
I don't know that. I don't know.
I think it's interesting. I was looking at the some of the events where the fee is also at 75%. Similar score, 2021 range that you put in here as reference, like movies in the park. I think all the net proceeds go to Rotary, and Rotary has no overhead, and then all those net proceeds are distributed back to El Segundo Community. Tree Musketeers, probably similar. Run for Education.
PTA.
They only got a 25% waiver of fees. And all that money goes right back to the PTA, right? All the net proceeds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm in favor of being consistent and using the scorecard, and scorecard says they should get a 75% waiver of fees, and we should consider that. And I don't have an opinion yet. I'd like to hear from the rest of the council on the beer garden item.
Shall I go first?
Please.
I think keeping consistent with the scorecard is good, especially if we're talking about the inception of a beer garden at the event. One can make the argument that the beer garden may take away from some of the local businesses making money on that day, but what I can tell you from personal experience is every single one of those local businesses on Main Street is bursting at the seams. You can't get in. I mean, El Tarasco has tables set up out front. Fritz is busy. Fantastic is busy. Line out the door. Rock and Brews, you can't get a table. Tavern can't get a table. I didn't go to Brewport last year, but I do not think the inception of a beer garden is going to take away from our local businesses. And I think if we stay consistent with the scorecard, we just call it a day and go enjoy some cars.
Okay. Other council comments?
At risk of being really, really boring, I tend to agree. I see no reason to not revert to the standard to which we hold every other organization. Similarly, I have not, in my experience, had a sense that this will scavenge or poach business away from our local Main Street businesses. I would ask for some specificity on how the beer garden is to be provisioned in terms of who is providing security for that and those elements. But that can be ironed out, I suspect, in the permitting and planning process.
Thank you, Councilman Pimentel. Councilman Brand?
I support the request to waive all city fees like we did last year, and I'm okay with them giving a try for the beer garden this year.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'll go with the scorecard and okay on the beer garden.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the 75% fee waiver and that we allow the beer garden with details to be ironed out and agreed upon and approved by staff.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. 5-0, thank you. Sure it'll be another great event. All right. Item 12, consideration and possible action to allow use of city property as a central venue for the El Segundo Art Walk and allow the event to operate a beer wine garden on public property during the 3 dates of the 2018 El Segundo Art Walk. Fiscal impact, none. Meredith.
All right.
Thank you.
Busy summer. Let's. At the April 17th City Council meeting, the Art Walk event producer George Renfro provided a very comprehensive report to the City Council, requested the City Council to help support financially putting on the event. Art Walk is an event that occurs on the third Thursdays of the summer months on June, July, and August, and provides creative businesses with the opportunity to showcase local artists. And they're looking to expand the event and draw visitors, more El Segundo residents, South Bay residents, to El Segundo throughout this cultural event. The city supported the funding request, and we are working towards details surrounding the expenses as well as measuring the success criteria. Also, during that conversation, Mr. Renfro had suggested the idea of adding this year a headquartered venue or a central venue that would be on public property somewhere centrally located among the Smoky Hollow downtown districts. And that would basically be a place where visitors could check in, get the map of the different participating businesses and restaurants, information about the artists, probably have some entertainment component to it, and also a beer garden. So tonight's request is from the Art Walk Association to utilize city property for their central venue. They've offered 3 different options, proposals to look at. The first one is the fire station parking lot on the corner of Grand Avenue and Main Street. They felt that this was really their preferred location, given the open space of the parking lot, its location to both downtown and Smoky Hollow, and also the visibility as people are entering the event. Keep in mind that the farmers market is also going on Thursday nights, and so Main Street is closed at Grand Avenue for the 300 block. The second option that they've proposed site plan for is a street closure on Franklin between Main Street and Standard. Obviously, this is also a good location in terms of centrally located for the Smoky Hollow area. What it does entail is more personnel from the city side to provide that road closure. And the third option was the City Hall Plaza, which came out of conversations here at the City Council as being basically an area. The benefit to that area is that it doesn't take away parking opportunity, but the downsides really are logistically related in terms of coordinating with farmers market, getting set up, breakdown, and also it being a bit off the beaten path in relation to the Art Walk locations. Their request is also to, again, have alcohol service at this central location. So keep that in mind when you're discussing the different locations as well. But George Renfro and also his partner is here tonight to answer specific questions. They can take you through the 3 different options, pros and cons, and how they envision those options if you'd like.
Ask a question real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott, please.
Mark, if my office space is one of the locations where artists showcase their art, am I a conflict and do I need to step out?
Yeah, I would recommend that.
So I will recuse myself from this item.
To that end, we sponsored and hosted art in a venue last year, but we have no intention of doing that this year.
I'm sorry. Where?
My company, my property, and
okay.
Eucalyptus.
Oh, okay, you're not going to participate this year.
Not going to participate this year. Sorry, George, we're not participating this year. Hate to break it to you in open forum, but
all the help.
Okay, so would council like to entertain
Sure.
George and John? Okay, gentlemen, please. You want to just give us a little background on the options? And I'd also like to hear, George, I know we asked you to go back to EDAC and talk to them about the success criteria and the use of funds. Maybe you could address that as well, please.
Yep, we'll cover that.
Okay.
Thank you, Meredith. I couldn't have said it better myself. One thing she didn't note is Bart Barf won't be playing. Okay, so yeah, we had a approval last time when we talked.
Question.
So yeah, we've been plugging along. We met with EDAC and came up with some success criteria because we really see this for it to be a benefit to the city, to bring people into town, create revenue for the existing businesses, create awareness for town. So some of these success criteria are attendance at the event, the demographic that comes to the event, whether they're from town, from South Bay, from Los Angeles, involvement with the activations that we have throughout the event, and we're going to follow up with feedback. We'll have staff with iPads and volunteers to take down information from people coming to town, and that's a way we follow up with them. City activity, web traffic, search terms, people searching the El Segundo Art Walk, people coming to our site, the city sites traffic, if you can see any of those analytics, foot traffic and parking. Al Yahi brought up a point of using the parking at like Cambria and setting up a shuttle service, which the Art Walk's going to manage, be able to chart parking in that sense. We know some of the locations that we're recommending is essentially take away parking, but I think it's pretty nominal compared to the parking we're going to add, but being able to chart that, and I think we'll see if there is a ton of cars parking that lot in Cambria. We're sort of assuming that those attendants aren't from El Segundo. So being able to see that breakdown, I think, Drew, one of your concerns was, or advantages of the Art Walk, is bringing people in from outside of town. So I think that would be a good way to see. Artists and business participation, one that would be tougher to get would be business revenue. I mean, sort of just word of mouth last year of talking to restaurants and having them blown away by the success that they've had from those particular nights. But if there's a way we can get hard numbers, it would be great. We have food trucks, so food truck revenue, organic press hits, and organic engagement on social media, which, I mean, really getting these in front of EDAC, they said yes to all of them. We kind of racked our minds on what all these could be.
Great. Thank you. Any questions on those before we move on to logistics?
Just if I could ask on background what the methodology is for capturing that data.
Right. So we'll have volunteers at the event at the main venue. ESMOA has a person clicker that tracks every person that comes the venue, and we've used that in the past to sort of gauge attendance and assume that not everyone goes there, so we just inflated it slightly in the past. And then the beauty of the web, we get to track press and organic engagement on social media, and open rate on emails, and traffic to your website, share and use our hashtag, and that's something that we really track.
How do you capture the demographics?
The demographic is, again, done through social media. Instagram and Facebook gives you a great breakdown on location and age and sex and stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll have someone there capturing it, and I mean, we really want to know feedback on the event, where people came. We did it a little bit last year, but we're just down a couple men, so we have the willpower to do it. But
John, could you speak in the mic, please? It's being recorded.
Right, so it's short survey that we want to use through iPads, and basic demographic, but also location. It's probably the most important to figure out where from and the overall demographic.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to burden attendees, but how they would recommend. Would they recommend this event to someone else, and number of times they've attended, and number of venues that they visited. I think building this headquarter venue. Does everyone just go out there? Not, but yeah, where they ate, where they spent any money. That's not something that necessarily needs to be done. Follow up hard with email surveys.
Well, and maybe you could do some type of treasure hunt online, where when every venue you go to, you log in and you get like something, and you get some type of prize at the, so it becomes like a, how you have to go around and stamp wherever you go. Do some type thing online.
Right.
When you get to the main stage, you can get a mug or I don't know.
Right.
Something.
Yeah.
So that would, and then you could collect data.
Yeah. The North Star for us is to really digitize this event and tie it into augmented reality, and have people check in at venues.
Right.
Yeah. Sort of build. But yeah, time. Some time.
Instead of the cake hunt, it's the art hunt.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be clear, but right now the plan is to have people stationed at SMOA and other strategic places,
yes,
counting people and asking questions.
Okay, any other questions on the success criteria? All right, we're going to move on. You want us to talk about the event and your preferences? Logistically.
For the venue?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, our preference really is the fire department, the fire station parking lot, and I think it's really for a number of reasons. We feel like it's the right size, right location. A lot of people are either walking down Grand, or they're walking sort of catching the runoff from farmers market. It's a visually central location. We looked at Franklin. We think it's just a tad large for us, and we don't want that's something that we want to grow into that.
And by being at the fire station, you're actually connecting Main Street with the Smoky Hollow. Like it's a kind of a connector.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great spot. I mean, there's sort of a divide with the Art Walk of Hollow, and then sort of the side of Main Street, or at least up to, say, Pine. So I think having a central location there sort of marries the two.
Did the Arts and Culture Council weigh in on the venue, or just the event in general?
We talked about it, but we didn't actually weigh in on it.
Yeah, I don't recall us weighing in, and I think I suggested the Civic Center Plaza here, because it wouldn't take any parking, but upon reflection, it does present conflicts with the Thursday farmers market, and it might be difficult in setting up both events and identifying where one stops and the other one starts. So I'm having some second thoughts about that. When I read this item, I thought, well, there's 3 art walks and 3 proposed choices for headquarters venues. Why don't we do one of each so we could check it out, so then the next year we'd know which one worked. But I'm not so sure we even want to check out Civic Center Plaza upon review.
Yeah, I think that one would be tough for us. Just the load in during farmers market and looking like it's the same event.
Because they start loading up 1 o'clock, Meredith, farmers market.
Yeah, and then the hours are different, right? Because the farmer's market closes at 7, where this would just be kind of kicking off at 7. So the hours don't really coincide.
Right. The cargo vans pulling up and loading in their easy ups and tables as sort of walking. I guess selfishly, it's just not the best welcoming for us.
Conflict of brands. It's hard to distinguish. Part of the art walk, is it not part of the art walk? Is invest quite a bit of resources, atmosphere.
Why is the art walk on Thursdays? It started before I got back here on the council. Is that just a coincidence? It's the same night as the farmers market, or was the thought to work them both together?
It was, well, Holly Socrates was creator of this event. That was one of our thoughts, our meetings. But it wasn't. We sort of just figured people are going to be in town. They haven't yet. Friday and Saturday.
Right. You think the farmers market makes much of a dent in contributing participants to the art walk, or just a separate deal and people leave? They got their vegetables and
I think we've educated a lot of people in town about the event. Set up signage or left out postcards or directed. It's definitely a benefit.
Tell us about the art activation. I know you have it for the 3 venues outlined, but tell us about the other art, because my concern about the city, not the city hall, but the fire department lot is that people, I do believe, will move less. So where will the other art activations be, and how do you get people away from the beer?
Right. Well, we've just, through the promotions that we've made of the event and getting the word out for both artists to apply, we have over 100 artists that have applied. We're going to have 30, 35 venues. They range from all different sorts of mediums. South Bay Customs is going to be sort of one of our highlighted venues of live music over there. So really encouraged movement along the map. We can sort of go through the list of who could be participating. There's a movie manufacturer that's supposed to participate this year, and I mean it's amazing that even exists in town. It's sort of top secret, right?
Right.
But yeah, we have a lot of other venues that are going to be participating and contributing to things.
I think to get back to your question about how to get people not just in one location, but experienced past, because so many businesses, local businesses involved. I feel like a lot of those local businesses bring in their friends, and I feel like a lot of people experience all 35 venues. Not every single one of them, but all 35 venues get their own little crowd. I don't think it's ever been a problem that we've had a central venue or there. Job of that.
How many venues might you have beer and wine in? Sounds like maybe South Bay Customs. I know they do that
Yeah,
occasionally.
Yeah.
What other locations?
That'll be it, just those two. Plus, any restaurants that participate, or it is a.
So we're not gonna do the wristbands again?
We are gonna do wristbands 100%.
But just at those main venues.
Okay, so you can't use the wristband and use it at another venue like we did last time?
We have two venues. Wristbanding at both venues. Be the same wristband so that you don't have to get a second. Right, not answer the question, right?
No, you answered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just thinking.
I'm just
Okay.
It's just we run into a tricky situation with the ABC because they see it as like a public,
yeah.
so we can't get like a citywide ABC permit. El Segundo,
It's just
with
hard
a
to
red
control
cup.
that, right?
Yeah.
But a
Liabilities.
business could get their own ABC permit if they wanted to amp up the experience for their particular business, right?
Exactly.
Right, they would
Okay.
have to go through ABC.
But right now, you're only anticipating 2.
The Art Walk, will be helping.
Okay, so other businesses might choose to do their own thing and go down that road. I got you. Okay.
But they just have to
Other-
pull their own.
Right, and it's their own liability, their own policy.
And do you have some kind of approval over that, or no? They're up to their. Are they left to their own devices? They go get the permit. They're okay to do that. How do you?
They crossed that bridge yet. I think we would like to try to control aspects of it because a certain incident happens at a venue that don't have an ABC license at, as in if they don't have a security card, not ID, not wristbanding, right? Just that's why we're trying to go away from 35 different businesses handing out beers. Like, well, really try to think about this, do this a smart way, do it a safe way. So, I'd like to cross that bridge, get there, but we really encourage not to try to pull their own ABC license, back the whole event.
Now, is the fire chief okay with the parking in the party in the parking lot?
Yeah. Really good question. We haven't.
Here he comes.
Thank you, ma'am. Certainly, this is a public parking lot. We do have city vehicles there, but we can relocate them.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, council comments. Any more questions for the applicants?
I'll just ask one more. Is there any concern, and I think, Drew, you alluded to this briefly, that by putting the Prime Beer Garden next to the art activation, that will preclude the flow of people, in conversely, if they had their own individual special event ABC permits, they would percolate in the way that we probably saw them do in the Art Walk 3 years ago, as opposed to being magnetically taken to this corner, and as opposed to it being a pivot point between sort of the two flanges of the Art Walk. It just becomes the place they just sort of gravitate until you undo the taps.
I think that's something that we work towards, want to happen. Figure out this sort of add venues happens. First 2 years was Wild West and get away with it, and probably the greatest 2 art walks that'll ever happen because everyone got to get free alcohol and walk around town, and everyone turned a blind eye. But the ABC did sort of crack down on us a month before our last event, and they said, "Hey, you guys better, play by the rules." So we sort of took it upon ourselves, and we said, like, "What did we do?" So we found a private business private space to have our first headquarter venue to test it. I think we did. We got a lot of bad reviews because there wasn't libations free everywhere. So we're slowly trying to figure that out the right way, and logistically figuring out all those things that John just mentioned, of security cards and ABC, and If we're pulling insurance and we have to have our entity on it, and we're not there to look over everyone's shoulder if something goes wrong, you know, drunk driver kills someone, the event's done good. So
Right. So the event is art walk. So we feel like the alcohol component, it's there, but it's, some people don't want to come out and experience the art walk because that's okay. We're okay with not satisfying everyone.
Is the intent that the beer garden will be serving up into 9 p.m.?
That's the intent, but last year it dwindled down after dark. Nine o'clock.
Okay, any other questions for the applicants? All right, thanks, gentlemen. All right, council thoughts, comments? Mayor Pro Tem Perstuck and Councilman Brand, you two have been working on arts and culture, probably closest to this. What do you think?
I think to Dr. Brand's point, we should give it a try and try the parking lot by the adjacent to the fire station, and then, you know, we can always reevaluate it.
Yeah, the experience of trying it out will teach us a lot. We haven't been there before, and we'll learn. So I think we should, I'll make a motion to go along with this and allow the use of city property for the venue headquarters, and we'll wait for the report at the end of this.
Can I ask for a quick clarification? Is that for the first art walk or for the entire season of them?
It's for the entire season because the organizers have identified that as their favorite spot. And if it doesn't work out the first time, I imagine they'll be back here to say, we want to switch to our second choice or something. So we'll see how it goes first time.
I kind of like, Dr. Brand, I kind of like where Councilman Pimentel's headed. I mean, again, this is like, we've got all these uncharted areas tonight that we're dealing with. I would prefer to see how it goes with this new location on Main Street, you know, after the event, kind of do a debrief and see how it goes. Is that going to affect your ability to promote or do anything else?
Not really.
I think it's a good idea. Yeah. Plan to activate it properly and comfortable coming back here. And
yeah, you got a month between, right? It's about a month. Yeah, should be.
have to look at the city council meetings, you know, whether they fall.
First and third Tuesdays.
Yeah, I mean, and you can plan for it, and then, you know, but it just puts another, you know, a review before the final on the second and the third. And then I'm sure if the first one goes well and we move forward, then we'll probably approve second and third.
Yeah, yeah.
I think this.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Are we meeting July 3rd? We are, right? We're not.
Usually
We usually cancel that one.
Yeah. I won't be here.
4th of July is on a Wednesday.
And I won't be here.
Clerk is canceling that. No.
The next meeting would be the 17th, and we would be, when's your event? July?
That'd be tight, yeah.
I don't think
19th.
we did have to move it to a larger space. We would like to.
So why don't we approve the first two?
Well, we could also get couldn't we get a staff report that's circulated via email or something? We don't have to meet to get results, do we? Mark says no. We're not going to have a discussion via email, but we could actually, if someone had grave concern, they could call a special meeting, I would assume, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a good compromise, acceptable to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so I would move then, just slightly refine what Councilman Brand said, that we move approval of using the Fire Station 1 for the first art walk installation, and then we get a report from staff within, I don't know, a week after. Meredith, is that reasonable? 10 days?
Sure, I think.
Week? Okay. Within a week to get circulated, and then if any of us have significant concerns, we could certainly call a special meeting or,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. 4-0. Thanks. Thanks for all you're doing.
We would also need a motion on the beer garden piece.
Okay.
Oh, the beer.
I'll move approval of the allowing the beer and, is it beer and wine? Just beer and wine garden at the event.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's for just for the one event, correct?
Well, let me restate it then. I move approval of beer and wine garden on the city property,
For the first.
fire station, parking lot for the first event.
Aye.
That's the second.
Oh, second.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 4-0. All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Just so I understand, we'll report back, and if we don't have a special meeting, then staff is authorized to approve the second and third events.
That's the way I understand. Does anyone object to that?
I don't object. I mean, I think that part of it, we'll want to see if there's any spike in arrests or things like that around that area. I mean, there's a number of places that serve beer right around there that are controlled environments that are certainly more controlled than the parking lot, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. We're now on to reports.
No,
Sid-
13.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, is there 13?
Oh.
No, sorry. Reports, city manager.
Briefly, we are done with the remodeling of the Fire Station 1, our downtown fire station. We're having an open house this Saturday, Chief, at noon. The chief's still working on the art walk. Noon at Fire Station 1 to see the new apparatus bay doors, the new signage, the new kitchen and remodeled dorm spaces. It's pretty impressive. And the seismic strengthening. Not as exciting, but very important in a public safety facility. It's noon this Saturday, right, Chief? All right. 10 to 2. The tour is at noon. Okay. Okay. We're very proud of that. Secondly, I wanted to announce to the community that we have been lucky enough to find a very qualified director for our library services. Her name is Melissa McCullum. She comes to us. She's a resident of Manhattan Beach. She's worked at the county's Manhattan Beach Library twice now, the old library and the new library, as well as the county library in Lawndale, the county library in West Hollywood. She has a great deal of experience, and we're looking forward to Melissa joining us on June 4th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Greg. City Attorney, you have an item number 13 under your reports.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I was bringing forward for your consideration and possible direction. There's currently a Senate bill and an Assembly bill that are looking to amend the accessory dwelling unit legislation that was enacted back in 2016, and that the Council, the Planning Commission, and then subsequently the Council took action with regard to the accessory dwelling units. And just some background. Prior to 2016, there were what were called at that time secondary units that were allowed a small area of the R1 zone, the single-family residential zone. Legislation came out and changed the name of those to accessory dwelling units and mandated that with regard to the R1 zone that they be permitted as far as taking an existing residential structure and being able to build one within existing residential structure so that you would essentially have what would be sort of a duplex, or being able to convert what were called accessory structures, workshops, art studios, different kind of things that people build in their backyard, convert those into dwelling units. And finally, as part of that, the council could restrict, but could allow new structures to be built in the R1 zone at that time. And it was completely permissive as to whether or not you had to allow them in the R2 or R3 zone. So at the time, the council took action to allow them in the R1 zone, both, you didn't have a choice as far as the existing structures, but you allowed them to be built as new structures throughout the R1 zone with, I believe, a cap of 1,200 square feet. And then you allowed them in the R2 zone with regard to properties that were under 4,000 square feet. At that time, the state law provided that one of the units had to be owner occupied. There was some disagreement about, well, I thought it was pretty clear that the legislation at the time, while it allowed you to convert certain structures or property owners to, that it didn't allow conversion of garages, because the way it was written was that because if a unit was built within 500 feet of a transit station, we couldn't require any additional parking. And if it wasn't within 500 feet, there was some parking that could be required, but there was no mention in the legislation of actually taking away parking from existing structures that were on site. And the Department of Housing and Community Development disagrees with that interpretation, and they sent us an email to that effect, although a number of cities have interpreted it the same way that we have. They also, as part of that, we defined existing to mean anything that was in existence as of January 1, 2017, because otherwise the legislation didn't really make much sense. If you're going to convert an existing building, well, if you allow somebody to convert one out in the future, then you might as well allow them to build a new unit that's two different units. I mean, it doesn't really make much sense that you would prevent them from building an actual duplex. If it didn't, wasn't going to be converting existing buildings, then it just didn't logically make sense that you would convert something after you built a new structure under the law. HCD didn't agree with our interpretations, but a lot of cities did it the same way that we did. The other issues were, I'm just looking at my notes here. Well, now Sacramento has decided that it wants to change some of the rules and or clarify depending on what city's position was. They currently have legislation that would allow conversion of garages without any sort of replacement of those parking spaces. So this would in effect do what they don't believe was allowed under the original law, and those garages can actually be in the setback area. That is, that many cities allow garages to be built in areas that are within a setback area from, normally a city might require, for example, a 5-foot setback for living structures from the next property line so that you don't have living structures close together. But with garages, you might allow them either a 0 setback or a smaller setback because they're not going to be occupied. You don't have noise and other factors. So Sacramento's looking to eliminate that, if you will. Also, under the prior law, we have in the city what's called lot coverage restrictions. That is, only a certain percentage of your lot in R1 area can be built upon. So much of it has to be unbuilt or open space, if you will. Sacramento's proposing that with regard to the second units, that the lot coverage restriction could not be imposed. They're also proposing to delete the owner occupancy requirement, which I think the point of that is to invite basically investors in to build 2 units on a property, opposed to having one of them owner occupied. They are going to require that in the R3 zone, that to the extent there are 5 or more units, that a 6th unit be allowed. Not certain how they arbitrarily came up with that number, but that's what they're proposing. And also that to the extent there's some unpermitted or substandard structure that's being occupied, that unless there's a significant health and safety problem, that the city would be unable for a 10-year period to do normal code enforcement to require that the structure be brought up to current code code standards. I'd like to think that that one's not going to make it. Generally, building codes are pretty objective and build to a certain code. This would effectively prevent or allow, I guess, someone just to put up a structure, and unless we could convince a court that there was a substantial health and safety risk, which would put us in an awkward position potentially with a lot of residents that we don't like to be in, getting in arguments about what's substantial and those kind of things. They would be allowed to keep those kind of structures and have 10 years to bring it into compliance. So there's been a pretty significant change there's significant changes being proposed in the law, and it raises a number of questions. For instance, if garages can be converted, and if it's not just going to be existing garages, but in the future, does the city need to require garages to be built at all? Or if the city's going to require garages, should it change the setback area so that if they are converted, they're not close to another house, if you will, so that you have more distance between the properties? Well, I think the first issue really is, and I wanted to get some feedback from the council about whether the council wants to respond to these bills, and if so, how. And then also, I've been doing a little more homework on how some cities are reacting as far as the existing law and what may become the future law, and it'd be good for me to have some feedback from the council as to its opinion about these issues.
Mark, can you clarify one of the items in here? I was in the staff report. It talks about recreation rooms as a third and separate structure on the R1 property. I don't recall that as part of our ADU discussion up here.
It wasn't, and what is happening is that because it wasn't discussed, and I don't think it was thought about at the time, but the city allows for recreation structures, accessory structures to be built, and they're allowed to have a bathroom. So technically at the moment, potentially, if you could make it under the current lot coverage, you could have a residential primary structure, a secondary structure for an accessory dwelling unit, and then a playroom, if you will, another unit. So that issue was not addressed originally by the council.
It just seems like every few months we're on the defensive, trying to block another idea from Sacramento. I think our former mayor called it like that game in the arcades, Whack-A-Mole, right? So they keep popping up. Senate Bill 827 had a short life when it really got in the arena. But I think maybe we should try to work with other cities on an initiative that would stop Sacramento from getting involved in local land use issues, so that rather than knock down each of these ideas, and they'll keep coming up, that we just prevent them from playing in these local cities' ballparks. And it's my understanding there's the beginnings of an effort like that underway, because people are tired of this kind of thing.
Yeah, to that end, what's the League of California Cities and South Bay COG? Have they taken a position on these two?
Not to my knowledge yet. As Councilmember Brand just pointed out, the League was very focused on the Wiener bill, which is the one that would have allowed pretty massive residential structures near transit stops without any sort of parking, and so a lot of effort went into that. Now this bill is making its way around, and people are just starting to learn about it. So I don't know where the League will come out on this. Different cities may have different opinions about it. different counties, for example, a lot of these housing bills are coming out of Alameda County and out of San Francisco County, high density areas in the north. But these are getting votes, these are getting support from legislators throughout the state. They're getting enough votes to pass in some instances, so the ideas are generally coming out of those areas.
Thanks. And so the options that you're suggesting are to write a letter opposing or supporting the two bills, and also consider potentially going from general law to a charter city. Can you get into more specifics about what else that would entail? And then when I was reading it, it said that any decision would have to go before the Supreme Court as it relates to weighing in on these matters.
That's with regard to a charter city, yes.
Right. So maybe just clarify that a little bit for us as well.
And I think there are some other options as I've been, again, thinking about this. There is the charter city avenue, and what that really means is it goes back, actually it's been around for a long time, over 100 years or longer, but a lot of the issues that were originally addressed by charter cities, Sacramento or the court systems have ruled basically that the charter city status does not give the city much control. It used to be done for things like prevailing wage, labor issues. A lot of cities would just basically take its municipal code, draft a very large charter to govern its city, its elections, all sorts of issues. I wouldn't propose anything of that nature. I don't think it's really necessary in today's world, but there is the potential by becoming a charter city, and it's hard to gauge, but it's at least a potential line of defense against Sacramento on housing issues, that city could retain home rule, if you will, with regard to housing or zoning legislation, try to protect itself from Sacramento. Will that ultimately be successful? I don't know. The courts will ultimately rule on that. There are some cities that are looking at that option because of this issue.
Well, I just can't help but think about, we passed Measure C. Now we're learning that there's a proposition out there that would negate that altogether. So if enough cities decided to jump ship and become charter to avoid this housing, wouldn't we basically see other legislation at the state level to counter that?
Well, it would have to be a court decision ultimately, but the state legislature will try, no doubt. I think that there's a good chance the state legislature will watch this discussion tonight. I think they are, and the Department of Housing and Community Development, they are all over this issue and trying to stay ahead of the cities, and they have a goal, and that's to see lots of housing units to be built. They don't care what the local governments generally want.
Have there been any moves by the governor's office or legislative bodies for incentives or financing in front of these programs, or are they just all unfunded mandates that you've seen coming from Sacramento?
Generally unfunded mandates.
Okay. Anything else we should be considering? You said you've been thinking about this lately.
Well, I learned that a couple cities are, the theory behind some of these housing initiatives are to provide affordable housing. Well, I doubt that second units in El Segundo are affordable. They're probably going at market rates. The city of Pasadena and I believe the city of San Dimas are requiring that if you want to build a second unit or an accessory dwelling unit, you've got to price that at an affordable price. That is, under state laws, you have to come in at about 50% of the rental incomes for the marketplace. Point being, if Sacramento really wants to see affordable housing, then let's require it. But I think it probably also drives down the demand to build them. So that's an option. You could reduce the areas. It's hard to know what portions of this bill will pass, if any, or if not all. So I can't predict that at the moment. The council could take a more conservative approach than it did previously and roll back the areas that new structures could be built in. You know, again, that could be short-lived. You may want to change some of your setback requirements on garages. In fact, these are going to get converted into dwelling structures. If that's the trend, then you may want all of your structures to have certain setback requirements.
There were some cities in the South Bay, I recall, that chose not to adopt the state mandated ADU requirements. How are those going for them?
It's a good question. I'm aware of some of the cities that are saying they won't do it. I assume they'll be in litigation over that. The new legislation is also proposing to give the Department of Housing and Community Development some authority to report cities to the Attorney General. I don't know how high this will really be on the Attorney General's list of enforcement. I think it's kind of a scare tactic of sorts. Sacramento's getting more aggressive. There's no doubt about it.
The affordability idea that you proposed that would make it less attractive for people to want to invest the capital in doing that. How might that work, and how would the city govern that? I mean, like, and how would you, if you were going to require an affordability component, which I think there are different ways to define what that means. Maybe you can touch on that, but how would we even enforce something like that?
You'd have to set up a rent control office.
Well, a covenant would have to be recorded against the property, and then property owners would need to provide certain documentation to the city on a regular basis, probably annually, to prove that they're complying with the law. It would take some staff resources.
And you're saying that could be an option for addressing the third unit on the property, or are you saying going retroactive, or like revisiting the second unit that we'd intended when we proposed this?
The second unit.
Mark, are you aware at all about legislation towards rent control statewide? Rumblings of that?
I've heard rumblings about that for a number of years, but I'm not aware that there's anything. Doesn't mean there's things make it to, items get discussed at the committee level. Lots of items do, and then when they become a bill and start making it through some of the committees is generally when we really start paying attention. I will double check and see what's going on out there.
I've read a couple articles about it.
Last year there were 15 new housing laws passed.
I think the discussion right now in Sacramento is allowing cities to have rent control, or validating that rent control is a legal function of cities. I haven't heard of anything that mandates it yet. And to the ADU issue, there are cities that already have rent control programs, and in those cities it probably would be fairly easy or simple to add ADUs to that existing rent control program. We don't have rent control, and we don't have any regulations around that now or staff assigned to that role.
So city is going to be starting down that path with the R. Horton project, which will have full of affordable units. So
For sale.
Well, correct, but we're still going to have some oversight of those kind of issues.
So what are you looking from us? Do you want us to give you direction to maybe look at the setback for the garage?
Well, I think overall is sort of what's the philosophy of the council on this issue, and how much do you want staff to spend? One, council, what's the philosophy? The council want to send letters to Sacramento. It has, if enough cities, send letters, then this may not pass. We've seen it in the last couple of years on the wireless issue, last year on the small wireless facilities. We saw it on the Wiener bill. There's no guarantees, but does the city want to take a position on this? And then I think to Councilmember Brand's point, this isn't going to stop. They're going to keep coming, and the longer term solutions are something that council may want to give direction on. Do you want staff to start exploring this issue on a longer term basis with other cities and the league, putting some real effort into this. I mean, not that we're not, but it's, you can just see the wheels are moving faster and faster.
Yeah, I personally support doing everything we can to retain the ultimate authority in terms of housing and zoning in our city, and would support a letter opposing these two bills. I can't speak for the others, but I'd love to hear from you.
I think we
I
should
agree.
support a letter going out, direct a letter to go out, but at the same time look for maybe to go on the attack with an initiative, and that's already started, because there's a lot of frustration in cities across the state. It's probably the second hottest issue after people fight over the sanctuary city issue.
I concur.
Okay, and Councilman Pimentel?
I support us taking a stand for maintaining control over our own land use issues, irrespective of the merits of these. It should be a local issue.
Thank you. All right, so I'll move that we write a letter opposing AB 831, I'm sorry, AB 2939 and SB 831.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. All right, City Attorney, thank you for that. City Clerk, anything to report this evening?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, City Treasurer, I don't see Krista Binder or Dino. Reports from City Council members. Before we go into that, I just want to apologize publicly for not allowing Council Member Nickel or Council Member Pimentel the opportunity to speak after winning your election. I apologize for that, and would love to hear your thoughts about the campaign and all that. So we'll start with Council Member Pimentel for for reports.
I think that if for this part, I would just like to say a general thank you. Naturally, a thank you to the people of El Segundo for participating in the way that they did and the electoral process. A special thank you to my children, Dash, Mazzy, and Iris, for the patience, albeit not their support. And conversely, Mom for her support, if not her patience. My wonderful wife, Laura, the campaign team, who obviously did a wonderful job, Serena Burton, Heather McCauley, Bill Jordan, Lisa Johnson, and to my fellow candidates and competitors, certainly Maria, Lance, Scott, everyone ran a wonderful campaign that I think brought out the best in the democratic process in El Segundo. I would like to think I thoroughly enjoyed the process, regardless of outcome. I'm delighted to be here, and I wish my parents were still here for this one. It was their 50th anniversary, and they chose to take that to come out here for the swearing in. They are truly wonderful people who have never met a stranger and are back in Florida driving people to their doctor appointments right now. What an odd way to spend your retirement, but they're great, and I love them. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Hopefully they're watching. And I think I apologized to them that evening, too, so it was good to meet them.
My mother is Scots-Irish, so she only holds a grudge for, ever.
I can relate. I think I got that, too. All right, Council Member Nickel.
First off, no apology necessary. We're all council people. We all have a voice, and any one of us could have stepped up and rectified the issue. But I want to thank my wife, Kimberly, and my children, Scotty and Sullivan, for, yes, their patience, their effort, their compassion, and their motivation. My campaign team was great. I'm going to forget a name here, so I do apologize, but Michelle Kildorf ran the crew. I was surrounded by 9 wonderful women. They all had my counsel, and they all knew how to build me up and break me down all at the same time. It was wonderful. My brother and my sister for always supporting me, my mother and father. And the city is filled with many mentors for me. Eric Bush, Ryan Baldino, all my friends at Kiwanis, they were there for me. And to my fellow candidates, it was fun, nerve-wracking, an experience that no one could ever prepare you for. And yeah, I really hope most of those issues we got peppered on through the campaign get to come up so we get to say those things all over again. But beyond that, since this is my opportunity to speak, I want to mention that the beach cleanup, the Kiwanis Beach Cleanup with NRG is coming up on June 2nd at 9 a.m. at El Segundo Beach. It's a wonderful event. I welcome and invite any and everyone to come down and participate. There's a barbecue afterwards, which, according to one of the organizers today, you have a 30-minute time slot there to speak. So good luck to you.
30 seconds.
But beyond that, this is our first official meeting getting things done. And I have enjoyed myself up here with you four. Sorry. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Nichol. Councilmember Brand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Scott and Chris on their recent victories. I know it's quite an experience to go through a process like that, and good to see you up here at the end of the pipeline. I'd also like to thank the El Segundo voters. It was a 30% turnout according to clerk's final figures, a little over 30%, I believe, and that's better than we've done in the past. Still means 70% didn't do it, but 30 is better than 24 or whatever we were last. And then really celebrating the passage of Measure C was a little over 85%. So we definitely got the message out to the voters what that was and what it wasn't. It was a tricky measure to word and to explain, but we did it, and 8.5 out of every 10 voters said yes. So hopefully it will stand up in light of other things going on in Sacramento, and if it doesn't for some reason, then I think we could go forward with the confidence that we could pass it again at the supermajority 2/3 level. But hopefully we wouldn't have to do that. And I know we can count on the County of Los Angeles coming along with an idea for a new tax pretty soon in our future, which will help us a lot. And then finally, I want to recognize the the wrap of the ugly tank on Grand, the DWP cooperating with different entities in the city. It is a striking difference in that before and after picture. I hope we could do some more in the future. I think it's a breakthrough transaction now to connect Main Street to the beach. It's the first visible thing we've done, and I think there'll be more to come. So that was really a massive improvement for those of us who drive up from the beach up Grand towards the city. Wow, what a difference. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Brand. I just want to also acknowledge that you did a great job writing this statement for Measure C. Very concise, well written, and there was no argument against as well. So good job. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Perstuck.
Yeah, I just want to thank all the people that came in today for the interviews for the committees and commissions. We had 12 interviews, which I'm very impressed with the commitment from the community to help and participate in our city government. So thank you to everyone who came out today to interview for the positions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I just want to echo what Carol said and note that we're interviewing more people on June 5th. We had several people actually express interest that they weren't aware, and so I think we'll probably get a few more applicants. So we got more work to do. And I just want to mention a couple things. I'll try and keep this brief. I had an opportunity to speak. I'm on the LAX Airport Advisory Council, and we've been making it a point to rotate members of that council before the Board of Airport Commissioners, which reports directly to the LA City Council, to express our concerns about the most recent SCAG report that mentions that they are anticipating 106 million annual passengers by 2028, just in time for the Olympics, which is much greater than the 78.9 million theoretical annual passenger constraint that we had in place for many years. And Carl Jacobson, who's been long involved with the airport for dozens of years, as well as Dick Croxler involved, and thank you for all your service. We continue to advocate for protect our interests with LAX. To that end, we have a meeting with Deborah, or I have a meeting with Deborah Flint. It's one-on-one to start, and then from there, Carol and I will be meeting with Deborah and her staff, along with Greg and our lobbyist, Kobe King, to continue to advocate for our rights. And we're in the middle of a parking study. Do we know, Greg, when that is expected to be complete, the parking study that LAX is funding for us? Working on it now? Great, thanks, Ken. We went to a great event. I want to applaud Heidi Wong, who is part of El Camino College. She's also an El Segundo resident, and she was part of the South Bay Promise, and it was great to see Dr. Moore there, along with other members of the El Segundo Unified School District, where they signed a promise to commit to the program, which essentially the applicants that are accepted into that program get their first year of tuition at El Camino College paid for. It's a great program. And many people, many school districts were represented. I was proud to be there and represent the city along with Dr. Brand. Dr. Brand is actually a distinguished alumna of, there's like 15, as he said, with like parking space for the pigeons up there, right? Yeah, so many distinguished alum from El Camino College. So I asked Dr. Brand to speak and address the crowd, and so that was awesome. Chevron, Chris Pimentel and I think everybody on the council went to an event, and this is good for everybody to know because we've got Chevron, we've got this massive structure in our backyard, and it's good to know that they are on top of disaster and continuity planning. They had about, I don't know, Chief, 15 different government agencies represented. Chris and I, and I'm sure Carol and Scott and Don got to see it in action. It was a 2 or 3 day scenario event where they planned for a worst case scenario, a spill right off of the marina. And it was very impressive. And so it was good to see that. Glad we could be a part of that. We had a great event, the Founders Day lunch that the PTA has put on. Carol was there, Scott was there, and that was wonderful to be at and see, again, leaders making our schools even stronger in this town. I was fortunate to go to an event that has got another one coming up. Chris Keldorf, who was best friends with Nate Chittick, a great friend to a lot of us who passed most recently, was inspired to start an event called Dads on the Rise, dadsontherise.org. So a quick plug. Chris has now coordinated 3 different events. The first one was about nutrition with El Segundo's own Derek Johnson, who's an expert in nutrition, because Chris wanted to make a difference to dads in this town and help improve their lives from a health standpoint. Then it went on to marriage counseling for the second one, and the third one was hearing from, you'd love this one. Actually, Chris, it was a Marine, a Harrier pilot, and some of the things he learned in terms of leadership, leading from the edge. So be on the lookout for that. I think it's a great example of people in our town getting involved and making a difference one family at a time. The hometown fair was great. Glad to have been a part of that briefly and support the Rubber Ducky event. And I think I put in $100 and I got 4 Jersey Mike sandwiches, most expensive sandwiches I've ever paid for, but I was thankful to get them. The Ed Gala was wonderful. Kudos to Carol Perstuck, Neil Cadman, Barbara Briney, and there's so many people. Who am I missing? There's a bunch of key people involved. Chevron, Shannon McGidd. There were so many people involved. It was a great event. Record turnout, right? So it was super fun, and I think a lot of money was raised. Then Saturday, I went to the desalination public meeting. I encourage everybody to do their research, www.westbasin.org/desal. It's probably 3 hours long at the Richmond School. Unfortunately, mostly Manhattan Beach residents, based on what I could gather, but I was there with my family. Learned a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. The process continues with that. They're still taking comments online if you have them or questions. I went right from that to the Elder Fest just in time to congratulate Betty Jacobson, who won Senior Citizen of the Year, and your staff did a great job with that event, Meredith. It was wonderful at Jocelyn Center. And that's all I have in terms of comments. And let's see if I forgot. Oh, I want to thank, like Carol, the applicants. We did that for the committees, commissions, and boards. And we're going to move on to item 14. So I think on this one, consideration and possible action regarding the assignments of council members to various intergovernmental agencies, local agencies, and subcommittees, fiscal impact. Not I just read do I read who's going where? Ready to read them, or the assignments, Tracy?
You can read them if you like, but as long as they're in the record, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think I need to read through these, right? Y'all have gotten a copy from the clerk?
You sure?
Yes.
You don't want to go through it line by line?
No, I'm good, thanks. Hey, man, I'm just trying to follow protocol. All right, at this time, we're going to open it up for public communication. Oh,
I make
Okay.
a motion.
Can I get a yeah?
So
Second.
moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second it first.
5-0. Public communications. Now is the time and place for public communications.
Evening to the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking. Congratulations to all members, old and new. I'll try to be brief.
Jack, could you state your name for the
Oh,
audience?
I'm
please?
sorry.
It's okay.
Jack Axelrod. I reside at 317 Richmond Street. I've been a resident of El Segundo for the last, I think, 11 years. No, longer than that. Actually, 13 years. I'll try to be brief, and I will try to be coherent, which is very unlikely. As I've gotten older, dementia has begun to set in. The first item, well, all right, let me introduce myself a little bit, because most of you don't not know who I was at all, who I am at all. I majored in architecture at the University of California. I was licensed to practice in Washington. I practiced architecture in California, Maine, and Washington. I've been retired for a long time. I found other things to do for which I was not particularly better qualified. I suggest that we change the city name. I'm embarrassed to be residing in a city that is named for, given our current climate change, conditions of the climate at present. I'm embarrassed to be a resident in a city named for an oil refinery. Let's change the name of the city. That would be worthwhile. It'll take up a lot of your time. Well, to remember that several feet beneath your chairs right now are the bodies of dead native Californians, many of whom were killed for bounty purposes as ordered by the state of California. And that's a part of our history that doesn't seem to get mentioned, but these bodies are down there just a few feet below where you guys are sitting now. Rather than there's no reference made to the psychological effect of population size. And in other words, all the references I heard tonight had to do with financial concerns, but not psychological concerns. Enough of that. I'd like to discontinue the invocation. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with Reverend Ferguson. I'm an atheist, and yet this invocation. By the way, I've spoken about this to many of you don't know. Have never heard me before. I've spoken against the invocation in the past 11, 12 years. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, and besides which, the invocation is invariably, heavily, or entirely slanted to the Christian religion. It's not, if you're going to have an invocation, then let it include more people. And I've got more than that, but that's enough for right now. Again, I thank you very much for your time. Oh, I forget, didn't congratulate you too. Thank you too for your incredible efforts on maintaining the financial health of our city. And congratulations to you all again on your recent elections. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Axelrod. It's good to see you back. Any other public comments? Okay, with that, we are going to reconvene to close session. Thank you. Have a good night.